Welcome to the world of generative AI. ChatGPT, DALL-E, GAN, StyleGAN, BART, CycleGAN, Pix-to-Pix, Transformer, style transfer, text-to-image synthesis, neural speech synthesis. Yes, there are a lot of these terms circulating the world these days. The developments are rapid, and for many people out there are also hard to follow. No wonder. And with the technological development, many questions are also rising about the role of the human being in the process, which I would like to point out up front. The role of the human being plays an even greater role than ever before. At core, it is always going to be the human being and not the technology. We will demonstrate this through our experts' insight and use cases. So dear AI community around the world, welcome. Welcome to the world of generative AI, where we invited 20 AI experts today to help reducing all of the noise out there and boil it down to the practical insights. We're looking forward to exciting experts exchanges, knowledge and experience sharing through hands-on use cases and insights into future possibilities. As we see it at SwissCognitive, generative AI is set to revolutionize the business world, and already many companies are capitalizing on its benefits. From creating customer generative AI models by refining them with proprietary data to streamlining workflows through intelligent automation, the potential of growth and innovation is limitless. These advantages include enhancing labor productivity, tailoring customer experiences at the personal level, expanding R&D through generative design, and paving the way for new business ventures that can alter entire industries. With such unprecedented possibilities at hand, it's no wonder generative AI has become an essential tool in modern corporate strategies. With this reflection, however, we also know the development is not only bed of roses. It comes with challenges. Challenges which we are ready to take up with our experts today. I hope you are ready too, and you will keep the chat active by dropping your questions and comments. We will do our best to respond to all of you, but also feel free to reach out to the speakers on social media. Connect with them personally to get your questions answered. You will also see a QR code popping up next to each speaker to make it even easier for you. We start off today's conference with an interview with an inspiring young woman, followed by 3 cross-industry panel discussion, 2 use cases with hands-on insight into the application of generative AI, and all that rounded up with our grande finale. With that, let me get the ball rolling and ensure that we have the maximum amount of time available for our speakers today. It's my great and special pleasure to introduce you now to Neha, with whom I'm going to set the scene for our topic today. I will interview Neha about generative AI from the perspective of the young generation. Hi, Neha. Good morning, my dear. A warm welcome to our virtual stage. We are really happy to have you here. And I must say, with my daughters being at similar age like you, I'm always inspired by your drive and passion at such a young age. We adults can learn a lot from the young generation too. Neha, you are an 18-year-old inventor, best-selling author, and an AI ethicist who is passionate about driving social change through the technology. As a chair of the World Economic Forum's Generative AI Youth Council, generation, I'm thinking already about generative, the World Economic Forum's Generation AI Youth Council, you have developed innovation tackling issues from COVID-19 to climate change. At only 18 years old, you have developed innovations from social good, featured internationally by the New York Times, on the NASDAQ billboard in Times Square, and recognized by President Biden and the royal family. Congrats for your work.
Thank you so much.
You're most welcome. Now, Neha, let's deep dive into some questions. Could you share a bit of your journey in tech and AI at such a young age?
Absolutely, Dalith. And I would say that my journey with tech truly began at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. I come from a small town in Pennsylvania, and I didn't know really the first thing about technology, but seeing the need of my local community during the pandemic pushed me to create a solution because the pandemic was really devastating my town. So in the first 2 weeks of the pandemic, I taught myself how to code and I built 6 feet apart, which is a wearable social distancing device to slow the spread of the pandemic. And as I began my first real adventure with technology and learning how to program and build hardware and really leverage technology for social good, I started sharing my invention, and my story got picked up by the New York Times, which was such an incredible moment where that summer my idea was going viral and people were amplifying my voices. Companies were amplifying my voice, and that was a chance for me to really explore into technology. And ever since then, I've never really stopped building things and really going out and bringing my ideas into real life. So since then, I've developed apps and presented them to Apple CEO Tim Cook at Apple's headquarters. I interned at NASA last summer working on developing Earth orbiting satellites to monitor environmentally vulnerable areas. And I recently released my debut book, Innovation for Everyone, Solving Real World Problems with STEM, which is essentially a book that encourages students and especially girls to really begin, using their ideas and their imagination and building technology that can solve problems in their community. So really, I guess my journey and most recently, my tie with AI is I am the chair and US representative at the World Economic Forum's Generation AI Youth Council. And so, as a council, what we're working to do is collaborate with governments and corporations and really looking at how we can advocate for more ethical AI and AI that can be child safe and protect the rights and the privacy of children involved. So, really looking at responsible design. So, that is a little bit about my journey in tech. I would say it's a little bit of an untraditional path, but I'm really, um, proud of where I come from, and I'm really excited to see a future where more young people like me and people who come from all different walks of life are able to get into and break into this field of tech and are able to use technology to actually solve problems in the community and advocate for AI that can build a better world for all of us. So very excited to be here today.
Thanks a lot for your words. And I think building a better world for all of us, I think it's especially for the younger generation. And as I used to say, it's like every decision we take, and with we, I mean like my generation or even the older one, at the end of the day, it's about your future. And I can see your spark in your eyes and how you really are engaged with this topic. And I hope that a lot of other young people and even almost kids are listening and being inspired by you and step into this world, because I think you can do so much. But let's go back. The topic is generative AI. What are your thoughts on large language models like ChatGPT? How can they disrupt business and industries?
I think that's a really great question. And as somebody who is really excited about OpenAI's work, like 5 years ago, and I would always go on their website and play around with whatever interactive, demos they had, and really excitedly kind of digging into that. And now seeing how ChatGPT is blowing up across the world, it is so exciting from the perspective of somebody who is an AI developer and works with technology every day. It's very, very exciting to see how large language models like ChatGPT and then also generative AI for images is also taking over. That is so exciting because of the really endless possibilities in terms of disrupting businesses, industries, automating really simple tasks that people could be doing and that could almost be like a waste of time. So that is a huge time saver in terms of efficiency. And it can really, the way that we're generating text, generating images, automating processes like research or brainstorming ideas, that is a really big difference and mindset shift in terms of how we're conducting things in our day-to-day life, and especially in companies and especially in white collar jobs. I think we're going to see probably a shift in terms of what human beings should be spending our time on. So I think that's very, very interesting. And then also seeing the different interactions with these technologies, with different subsects of people. So like how kids are using ChatGPT for more fun ways, or using it for their homework. I think it's going to be interesting to see how a sense of morality is also going to be shifting over the next couple of years in terms of how ChatGPT is really changing our mindset and how things are done. So I think that is one very, very exciting thing, aside from the extremely cool technical advancements that I'm also very excited about.
Indeed. Listening to you, and I just grabbed a few words, like saving time, generating a shift. And it's probably very difficult for us, again, my generation, to try to look at it through your eyes, having your view. How much do you think it's a real shift for your generation? For ours, obviously. But if I'm thinking, especially from a generative AI perspective in design, so we have like InDesign, we have Photoshop, we have a lot of tools that help the designers to do things. And then when looking at generative AI and thinking of your generation, you're much open. How much do you really see it's a mind shift in your generation in contrary to my generation?
I think that's a really great question. And I mean, I think for both generations, whether it's Gen Z or, the adults that are out there in the world, I think it is, for both of us, it is a really major shift. I think for Gen Z, the only difference is we've kind of I'm leading the council called Generation AI. And I really like to refer to Gen Z as we are Generation AI. And we're the generation that's, grown up with technology and really seen AI dominating our world. And I think that one major way that this is going to affect our young people is kind of bringing the sense of, you know, always don't just believe everything that you're seeing online, or believe everything that an artificial intelligence algorithm is telling you. Like we're seeing so many, images or even written posts circulating that were written by AI, or images that were generated by AI that are completely false, like the Pope wearing a wonderful fashion, outfit on the runway. Like that wasn't true. And so kind of looking at these images, I think young people will have to change and are really seeing that you can't be trusting everything that you see online. And that's going to be a major shift in terms of believing and having that kind of sense of reliability and trustworthiness on the internet. So I think we're growing up in a generation where, today's youth are going to be very cautious of what we're seeing online, not trusting everything, and kind of taking an extra minute to verify, double check, and kind of see what's real and what's AI generated, which is a really interesting kind of thing to see in the future.
Okay, so actually, what my mother told me when I was younger, don't trust everyone out there. For your generation, is especially don't trust everything you see and hear out there. So you were touch basing the belief and trust, and you're also coming from the ethics perspective, and being an AI ethicist and the chair of the World Economic Forum's Generative AI Youth Council, as you just mentioned. You must be looking at these development with ethics in mind. I have like two things. Like on one hand, what are the possible danger of the generative AI like ChatGPT from an ethics perspective? And the other one, where do you personally, what do you fear? And where do you see the chances really from your personal perspective as a representative of the youth?
Absolutely. And so in the generative AI, the AI Youth Council, what we're really looking at is all the possible dangers and the possible pitfalls of AI algorithms evolving, including generative AI, and also including all these AI algorithms that are embedded in our day-to-day life, whether that is search engines or social media or things like that, or even AI powered toys, which are becoming very increasingly common in Europe, where babies from birth have these toys that are AI enabled, camera enabled, mic enabled, and that's just a really interesting. We're going to see an interesting evolution of that in the future. But I think to your question, the dangers of AI, I think one thing is seeing social media platforms that are powered by AI that are purposely downvoting genuine content and promoting hateful or discriminatory content, or content that can be false or edited. And, I think a big target audience that can be harmed by this is really young girls who are on social media, see these edited pictures or see, content that isn't genuine or isn't real, and then fall into extreme, various mental health challenges, whether that is eating disorders or anxiety or depression. And, I feel like these consequences are, we have to keep these consequences in mind. Like the
Indeed.
rapid development of technology is so fun. Like coming from somebody who is a developer and who loves, developing new technologies, working with software, working with hardware, it is so fun to see, our creation of new things like augmented reality filters or super advanced AI powered algorithms or generative AI that is creating new images of, the most beautiful models in the world that are just generated by AI. That is all very exciting, but then looking at it from the ethics perspective, it's important to realize that oftentimes young people, young girls, students of color are going to be the most hard hit and affected by this content in ways that we really might not imagine. So it's so important to consider like the trickle down effect on our young people today. And, whether that is having a hard time separating reality from AI generated content or feeling a negative self image because of all of this, falsely generated AI content. So I think it's so, so important for us as companies or for us as individuals, and then also all the companies out there watching to really prioritize and look ahead, like really have that foresight in terms of, okay, we're releasing this new feature or we're thinking of involving AI into our business model. How can we do that in a way that prioritizes the well-being of everybody, all of our users, especially young people who, foundationally, their minds are still developing, their bodies are still developing. We want to make sure that when they're in this really crucial age, we're protecting their mental and physical well-being. That
Yeah.
is the biggest point that I would like to emphasize.
Okay. Yeah, I see already. I mean, what we're discussing today is more from a business perspective, but I think it would be really cool to have another session, the two of us, probably more like a podcast about what is it between the older generation, I'm saying like the parents and your youngsters. And I have a lot of questions I would like to ask you as a mother, actually, even being in tech, and see what you would suggest to us, like how actually to cope with all these things. But let us wrap up because time is going fast. What is your vision for the future of generative AI as a young AI developer and ethicist? What is your vision?
I am so excited for the future of generative AI. We talked a lot about ethics and really protecting young people, but what I'm excited about for a future of generative AI is seeing a place where, companies are protecting children's rights through generative AI, but but also I'm excited about, young people becoming an active role in shaping the future of AI. So what I mean by that is having an understanding of artificial intelligence, awareness of its intimate relationship in our day-to-day life, and then also young people writing the code and actually shaping the next generation of what AI is going to look like. So having young people in the developer seat, shaping the algorithms, the code, the training data sets, and the purposes of these AI algorithms. And that is one thing that's really exciting to me, is seeing this kind of intergenerational collaboration where young people and
Oh, somehow we lost. Give us a sec. Neema will come back. Again, all about technology. We all know that we are relying on tech that works. So before we get her back, what I was also thinking by listening it, bringing young coders into the world, into the coding world. This is something that I was thinking, oh, you're back. Sorry, somehow we lost connectivity, so you're back. You were actually saying that for you, it's also very important to bring in young coders into the world, bringing in your view. And one thing that I would like to ask, although we're running out of time, with thinking of generative AI and the possibilities that people who can't really code have now with generative AI, do you see a chance to actually involve much more people, and especially young people who perhaps are afraid of coding because they have the right thinking that with generative AI, they will be able to support teams, coders, to develop various things out here in the world? Okay, somehow it doesn't work. Probably my question is not is not being liked by the technology. So I will go back with this question to Nima, and we will write that later in the social media, because I'm really wondering what the chances are for people who are not developers, who doesn't have the right background. Okay, back again. Yeah, we're kind of having challenges with the technology today. I'm sorry. So let's try for the last time. Otherwise, we will do this offline and we will share your answer in social media. My question was, because you mentioned that you would like to have much more young developer integrated in the whole process and developing various things. My question was, how do you see the chance for people, for youngsters who doesn't have a developer background, to enter now, supported by generative AI, to be able to engage and develop things either by themselves or in a team? She's actually here, but she can't hear us. Can you hear me? She can't hear us. Okay, so in this case, we will come back to you, dear audience, with the answer via social media. And if you have any other question to Nia, please reach out to her on social media. A big, big thank you. It was very great having you with us here and seeing your view on generative AI, and especially the spark that you have in your eyes for the topic. And I hope that a lot of other youngsters will follow you. So thanks a lot, and talk to you later. Bye. Again, I'm really, really sorry. I would have loved to share this answer with you from Nia today, but technology does what it wants. After this fascinating and enlightening interview, we are going to move on to the next part of our program, which is our first panel discussion. We have invited 5 experts from different fields and backgrounds to join us and give us their insights. The latest development of generative AI are fascinating, but how can we handle this? How can business handle this? And how can business leaders handle this? Jared, Rima, Semith, Patrick, and Didi, welcome to our virtual stage. Thank you for joining us today to unhype the generative AI scene in business. To make the most out of our time, let me introduce you briefly to the audience. Jared, besides being one of our AI ambassadors, you will chair our panel. You are leading a team of talented AI engineers and data scientists who are developing innovative technology solutions that revolutionize global supply chain, manufacturing, transportation, and commodity trading, as well as human microbiome and food ingredients. Your groundbreaking technologies are set to transform how people eat, farm, manage their health, work, learn, and live. Warm welcome, Jared. And now to your panelists. Rima, it is an honor to have you here with us today, joining us from Jordan, where my co-founder Andy and I actually had the privilege to spend some time towards the end of last year to trek in the desert. It was really beautiful. So Rima, you are an AI expert, youth influencer, popular keynote speaker, and futurist in technology. As the CEO of Galaxy Organization for Technology, a consultant for Tesla, INGOs, and the World Bank, you have over 10 years of experience in AI entrepreneurship. You have been ranked among the world's top 100 tech women influencers and are an active member of global youth and women's organizations with numerous volunteers initiatives in the technology field. Rima, welcome. Now to you, Semi, another AI ambassadors of SwissCognitive. You're joining us today from Dubai. Semi, you have held various leadership roles at Unilever and Turkcell and taught the first HR analytic course in Turkey at Istanbul's Commerce University. With experience launching the first AI certification program in the Middle East and winning the Global Instructor Award from CertNexus, you now counsel and upskill Middle East leaders and executives on digital transformation from the future at PwC. Your industry focus includes Big Four, telecommunications, and FMCG. Semi, it is a really great honor to have you here with us today. Followed by another AI ambassador of SwissCognitive, Patrick. Patrick, we're very happy to see familiar faces again. It is great to have you with us. Patrick, you are responsible for the global strategy business activities of Samsung SDS, the 10 billion IT services arm of the Samsung Group, where you previously led the AI division for 3 years. With experience as a CEO of Algorithmica Technologies and as an assistant professor of applied mathematics at Jacobs University, you hold a PhD in machine learning, a master in theoretical physics, and an executive leadership degree from NC. Your industry focus spans healthcare, manufacturing, and oil and gas. Patrick, we're delighted and grateful to have you with us here again on the virtual stage. And now to you, Didi. Welcome on board and welcome to our virtual stage. Didi, you are a founding team of Glean, leading engineering teams in search and intelligence. Having built search products for Google across multiple locations, you share your insights on your blog and Twitter, garnering over 50 million reads. As an independent tech consultant and active angel investor, you continue to impact the tech industry globally. Jared, Rima, Patrick, Semit, and Didi, it is a pleasure to have you all on here. And now I will hand over to you, Jared. The discussion and the virtual stage is all yours.
Technical difficulty. Okay. I would say, look, you're going to have to. Are you able to hear me now? Yeah.
Okay, let's give it another try.
There's a bad plaque here.
It is actually hilarious. Yeah. Doing all this tech calls up front, making sure that everyone has enough connectivity. At the end of the day, you never know what's going to happen. So perhaps, can I? Yeah. Okay, give me just a second. I'll be right with you and I will hop in.
Still human.
Now, I will take over. And actually, I'm waiting for the questions because obviously I didn't get it. So in the meantime, we know how can we handle this unhyping the generative AI scene in business. Rima, may I ask you to start until I'm getting all the questions that you were preparing? Where do you see the biggest impact? How can we unhype the generative AI scene in business?
Okay, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be with you all. Actually, I will give you an introduction about Galaxy Organization, which is NGO to empower women through technology using AI. And we will be discussing the impact of generative AI on business and how this kind of opportunities and challenges it present. An organization that focus on providing technology support to refugees and to the people in remote area in Jordan, I have the experience working with refugees and have the insight into how AI can impact their lives. So generative AI present many opportunities and challenges for businesses and NGOs working to support these kind of refugees and the vulnerable communities. And I see that AI is a powerful tool to identifying and addressing the needs of vulnerable communities. As someone founded this Galaxy organization that works with refugees directly, I see how generative AI being used as a powerful tool for identifying and addressing the needs and the needs of vulnerable communities by analyzing their data and the refugees population, how we can better understand their needs and how we can allocate these resources more effectively. I think additionally that can generative AI can help us to identify the potential risk and protect the vulnerable communities from harm. Uh, in more details, I think that we can add that collecting and analyzing data or data on refugees population, AI can help us better understanding their needs and preferences. Data can be used to inform the policy decision and allocated these resources more effectively and provided the targeted support to those who need it most. Generative AI can, yeah. Okay, and AI can be used to provide targeted support to vulnerable communities by analyzing their data on their specific needs and preferences. For example, AI can help us to identify the most effective intervention for addressing food industry insecurity or access the healthcare and ensure that resources allocated to those who need them the most. I can see you.
Go into the future? What is the current status and capabilities today, and where is the disconnect to the drain?
Right. So AI today is being largely hyped up, particularly generative AI around generating text, aka ChatGPT and GPT-4 and similar models. People in the general public, and I think a lot of business leaders would like to present these as effectively general intelligence, equivalent to human beings. Um, my opinion is to be the Debbie Downer on this panel, and to say, while that is the hope and the dream of the future, we are not there, and we are not there by months. We're not there by decades. Is my personal opinion. The current quality of these models, aka ChatGPT specifically, that it can bring today is beautiful prose written grammatically correctly using very nice vocabulary, but if you look at the factual content, it's most of the time simply not correct. So for example, if you ask it for the analysis of a financial statement of a company, it will deliver you a beautiful report that reads very nicely. You would like to believe what it says. However, the numbers in that report are very likely made up.
Perhaps, may I just interrupt quickly? If you say made up, what do you think, how should our audience understand made up? Is it something that the algorithm takes out of various documents and put it together? Or how should they understand it's being made up?
So in the particular example I'm referring to, the actual annual financial statement of the company had some figures and did not have others. For various reasons, they chose not to disclose something. But ChatGPT believed that those numbers would be nice to have in the analysis, and so it put them in. They don't exist, these numbers, right? So they were literally created without any basis in fact. But you were not informed by ChatGPT that these numbers were made up. And so you read the report, you thought it was well written, the conclusions made sense. Of course they made sense based on the data presented, but the data presented was wrong. Mm-hmm. And similar things, it doesn't know about things like gravity, locations, how the world works. And so we have to conclude as AI designers that language does not communicate how the world works. You require something else as well, preferably direct experience, right? So as human beings, when we're babies, we have direct experience with the world, and we hear language, and so we're able to put two and two together to create concepts. Concepts like tree and food and things like that, and we have an understanding of what that is. AI doesn't, and unfortunately, we still do not know how to teach AI about these logical concepts and about reasoning about the world. Not that we haven't done it, we don't know how. And that's why I'm saying it'll be a very long time before AI can really output correct statements.
I see. So what I hear is, besides that you're going to take probably decades until we will be there where we're thinking we might be soon, it's also about really teaching the algorithms and providing data and right data and have the accessibility. On the other hand, what I'm hearing, and there I would like to bridge to you, Semi, it's not only about the algorithm and AI understanding our world, it's also about how are the implication of generative AI on upskilling of AI talents, AI experts.
Yeah, exactly. We had set our AI team in my previous company 5 years ago, exactly now. So it was extremely popular by then, and it carried its popularity. But now we are reading a lot of reports that it can do many tasks. It is challenging a lot of things. I don't believe that even OpenAI or other teams that thought all this disruption caused by the generative AI in general. So the AI talent, AI experts also now should be able to utilize all these low-code platforms, no-code platforms, and also use generative AI itself to improve, to modify some of their codes. So it is time for them to upskill themselves. And definitely, as Patrick mentioned, natural language processing, to be able to create their own generative AI solutions or to use those plugins or train the already available models, they need to upskill themselves in natural language processing as well. And a lot of people will claim they are experts, and HR people's, recruitment people's jobs will be more difficult to identify the real expert and the generative AI experts.
Thank you. So let's go back a step. I mean, we have the accessibility, the data, the algorithm who needs to learn, obviously also the AI experts, a human being. But Rima, Another practical consideration is ensuring that generative AI is accessible to all communities, including those that may not have access to advanced technology or resources. This requires collaboration, obviously, between business and NGOs and governments to ensure that generative AI is being used in the way that benefits everyone. How can we make this happen?
Actually, it's a great question because we in Galaxy we worked hard on this to manage this kind of a triangle between NGOs, the government, and the main stakeholders and the business. So ensuring that generative AI is accessible to all communities, including that those that may have not access to advanced technology or resources, required a collaborative effort between business, NGOs, governments, and how we can make this kind of partnership and between these triangle, the collaboration between different stakeholders, it's very crucial to ensuring that generative AI is being used in a way that benefits everyone. So governments can provide, for example, the funding and the policy support. NGOs can provide on the ground expertise and community engagement. The business can provide the technical expertise and resources. By working together, these stakeholders can ensure that generative AI is accessible to all communities. As well, we can ensure that generative AI is accessible to all communities. It's important to develop the tools that are easy to use for this, that requires the minimum technical expertise. So this will be easier for the people in the remote areas to use this kind of technology. This might include developing, for example, mobile application or web-based platform that can be used in low-cost devices, or at least in areas with limited internet access.
Okay, thanks.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So from there, Didi, I would like now to switch again more to the business world. Many of us all love ChatGPT for our personal use and access to public knowledge. Why is it hard to build the same thing for companies' internal knowledge?
Yeah, so I actually want to jump off of what Patrick said, where one of the big problems with ChatGPT is we see a lot of these hallucinations. And when you bring that to an enterprise context, the consequences of those hallucinations can be quite massive. So there's a big challenge to try to ground these text that's generated from ChatGPT and large language models to actual reality. And so a lot of the research that we're doing, a lot of the work that we're doing is teaching LLMs to interact with your actual data. That can be a little bit tough in the enterprise because you have a wide series of permissions on your data. That data, underlying data itself, may not always be factual. But if you can ground the response in actual data at a company that is written by a real person, at least you have some hope of getting around some of the hallucination problems of large language models. Now, of course, in the enterprise, there's many other issues, such as things are very temporal. Knowledge changes from day to day. Something somebody said 2 days ago about a certain question may not be accurate anymore. So there's many such techniques that we're using to try to understand how do we make large language models, generative AI, actually grounded in fact at the enterprise and trustable by people who are making key decisions.
I would like to stay with you quickly on the large language model. Can you emphasize what does it mean now for the future of the internet, especially when we think about the accessibility and the reliability of data?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I think really keeps me up at night is this beautiful thing that the internet had going for the last 20 sort of years is this nice flywheel where people would make websites, traffic would come to websites, they would make some revenue, and it was a nice functioning ecosystem. Now with large language models, we see that all of these websites are being trained on and text is being generated using those websites, but traffic probably doesn't get back to websites anymore. So one thing that I really think about is, hey, what is the incentive for anyone to create online content anymore? We already see examples of people saying, hey, I used to write online, now I don't see any more reason to do it. I would just work with ChatGPT. There's big websites like Stack Overflow that developers use all the time that have seen huge drops in actual traffic. And there is a future of the internet which I think is quite scary, where what will the next generation of large language models 5-10 years from now actually train on if the incentive to actually create and contribute to the web ecosystem goes away over time?
Okay, thanks. Patrick, listening to Didi and coming in from the AI ethics perspective, I mean, we know we have the role of such accuracy matrix of generative AI, but AI ethics is a quickly growing field in its own. How does generative AI play into our efforts to be more responsible?
Right, so the whole topic around AI ethics or responsible AI is a very young topic, but I feel it's an extremely important topic. And there's really two major angles to it. There's what the companies actually do, and then there are many government actors and regulatory bodies throughout the world that are currently scrambling and are in the process of writing and releasing regulations. These bodies generally don't communicate very well with each other. So we have various bodies in the United States and European countries and Asian countries like China and so on releasing these documents. They're contradictory with each other. So it's very, very difficult to actually implement anything that is consistent because they are so different. They do change over time. Many of them are proposed and not passed. But in general, we need to watch out that we are being ethical, whatever that may mean, right? And what it means is about to be regulated. But these technologies, particularly text generative AI, is really capable of
Okay, again, today is really challenging. So another perspective that I would like to put the light on is afterwards also, we're having all this regulation, we have the accessibility, we having the data, the accuracy of the data. One of the things I would like to discuss later on when they're back is also about a lot of companies are struggling with digital transformation itself. And I think it will be a very core question about saying, what are the consideration on generative AI for companies aiming to achieve digital transformation? Is it more of a help? Is it more of a hurdle? So once I'm getting back to the panelists, I will re-ask the question. Here you go. Whoa, Semi, the one that I wanted to ask is not in yet. Okay, Semi, can you hear me? Semi, can you hear me? I can't hear you. I'm telling you, dear audience, it is very challenging. You can imagine that it's not really a comfort. And at the end of the day, we're struggling still with some accessibility. Okay, we're back. Semi, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you well.
Great. Lucky me. So what I wanted to say, because what we discussed before about accuracy and accessibility, ethics, and so on and so forth, I would like to discuss and to hear from you, what are the considerations on generative AI for companies aiming to achieve digital transformation? Because aiming digital transformation is something that we're hearing for decades. Where do you see, is this more of an obstacle? Is this a benefit? Well, what is your view on that?
Yeah, definitely. So the discussion topic we had so far actually had been around us. So it is now creating the hype. So after COVID, with the remote work and everything, the digital acceleration efforts accelerated. I think we will see the even a bigger acceleration with more companies will want to embed generative AI into their own capabilities. So it looks very easy, and but they don't know all the process, the all the teams, OpenAI and everything, to prepare the data for their algorithms, all the costs, all the team required, etc. So they might just face a difficult wall if they believe that they will change their company overnight. Also, on the other end, to be able to use generative AI, definitely it should be the case. They need to upskill, in addition to the AI team, upskill the workforce. It is like using a new tool, a new device like computers or the common productivity tools as well. There are some ways to get the most out of these tools. Also, they should have that people part in the picture to be able to achieve the transformation in order not to face additional challenges along the way.
So to achieve the transformation, Didi, you can imagine this is something I would like now to hand over to you. How does generative AI affect how companies hire engineers? World-leading AI network. We have a lot of people around listening. Where do you see the challenges there? How do they do this?
I think there's a lot of conversation right now in the community about how, AI will take your jobs. I'm not so sold that that is exactly how things will play out. However, in culmination with a bunch of these other macro factors, we are seeing tech companies need fewer engineers to even operate nowadays, agnostic of this new AI wave. But even when I am working in companies, I see other startups, we people are realizing that with the power of GPT-3, a lot of the code you can write is now written for you. There are these tools like GitHub Copilot or even just using ChatGPT directly that has made actual employees 1.5, 2x more productive. So I think one big trend is people will probably learn to hire much leaner and have much leaner engineering orgs than they were before. And the second big shift I want to say is that the way engineers operate today is going to fundamentally shift from a world where you look up a bunch of things online and you try to parse through information to see what helps. Now you have a model where you will be given a very nice structured detailed answer most of the time, and your job is really to find the nits and the things that are wrong and move that into a final production unit. And of course, the third big trend is people. I think every company's ML departments are fundamentally changing because we have these models that can do a lot of things out of the box. And the focus on old traditional methods is dying in favor of the use of these new generative AI techniques to fill fundamental natural language processing problems. So here's a couple of ways that hiring at least software engineers is changing in the tech community.
So thinking of that, and now we go again a step back. I mean, when we have those AI experts and engineers, Rima, when we're looking at the refugee students and the chances that we can give them, how can generative AI can be used to create more personalized and effective learning? Generative AI can be used to create more personalized learning experience for refugee students.
Actually, it is a great question to address this kind of issues for refugees, especially for education, because generative AI can be used to create adaptive learning platforms that can have this kind of content and assessment to the needs and abilities for the refugees student. By analyzing this kind of data on the student learning progress, generative AI can be identify the areas where they need more support or the challenges and how we can adjust the learning materials accordingly. As you may know, many refugees students may be learning in a language not their first language. Generative AI can be used to create this kind of language learning platforms that use NLP to provide real-time feedback and support. For example, we can analyze a student's spoken language and provide the feedback on pronunciation or the grammar. As well, we can make this kind of education with fun, with gaming, by analyzing data on student learning preference and habits. Generative AI can be create personalized games and challenges that motivate these kind of students to learn more and to track their progress over time.
Thanks. I think this is a very nice example to end up this panel, how we can, with technology, with emerging technology, not only generative AI, to support all kind of people around the world, also refugee students. Thanks a lot, Rima, Patrick, Semith, and Didi. Thank you for being with us. And I hope to see you all soon again. Please, dear audience, feel free to chat with them on social media and go on with the discussion. Thanks a lot and see you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Now, flying above beyond this generative AI, I'm happy to welcome another familiar face on stage, Romaric, joining us from Airbus. It's great to see you again and have you back on stage with us, Romaric. The topic of generative AI is storming through industries, and yours in aerospace is also no expectation. We can't wait to hear your practical insights. Before that, let me briefly introduce you to our global audience. Romaric, who is also one of our AI ambassadors, you have been the head advisor on AI technology for Airbus since 2019, leading the company's AI and computing technology roadmap. With experience as data lab manager, Airbus AI research team leader, and software engineer at an AI startup, you are a senior expert in AI who has implemented various AI technologies across numerous applications within Airbus. We are looking very much forward to your use case, Romaric. The virtual stage is yours. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Good.
hear you, but I still have the sound coming with some delay. But I'm very happy to be with you.
Okay.
And thank you for the introduction. We can, so yes, I can. Okay, there is some delay between the time where I speak and the time where you listen me. But I'm okay. You have the slide online and I can go, though I will proceed even with this delay. So, so yeah, but I'm okay. I go ahead, but I have your sound, so I need to. Yeah, no, I don't hear. I hear Livia. I hear everybody. So yeah, so happy to go ahead. So thank you. So first stuff is I'm going to let you know a bit what we mean by artificial intelligence in Airbus. So what do we do with AI? So we try to automate and to assist perception task, prediction task, or to support the decision making. And for the perception task, it's about making sense out of image, computer vision, making sense out of sensor data, making sense out of text or speech. About prediction, we try to use both physical models and the database models, and we try to put them together. On decision making is about really planning and scheduling on the one side, but also using AI to optimize controls, laws. And I will go in my talk to describe how generative AI is really affecting this different class of application. First of all, I mean, just about Airbus, you've seen, you know us mostly for commercial aircraft, but we are also very much involved in producing helicopters, producing spacecraft, so satellite, military aircraft as well. So the kind of application I will cover will be for the different entities of the group. So in terms of generative AI, what have we been doing so far? So we started to apply generative AI for computer vision. And the example I'm going to show to you is one of the key success we achieved. So this is about using artificial intelligence to do super resolution. So the example you have on the screen is a picture which we take with one of our satellites. So one of our business is to sell satellite image. We sell them to various customers, including Google. And we have them with 30 centimeter resolution with our latest satellite, the Pléiades Neo satellite. And we were able to use an AI to do super resolution. So to build a training data set with image with 30 centimeter resolution on 15 centimeter resolution, and to learn how to generate the 15 centimeter resolution from new image on any new image. So here you have an example of what we can do on a well-known building, the Eiffel Tower. And this is really a clear benefit as of today of what the technology can bring to us in terms of generative AI, and really a go-to-market helping us to improve our offer for what we sell to our customer. Then I have just other example linked to computer vision where we are more using generative AI to help us to have a better training data set. For example, to improve the training of algorithms to detect electronic components, or also linked to what we do in terms of autonomous taxiing, takeoff and landing, also to make more robust approach to detect the runway using computer vision. For example, we use a lot of synthetic image, and we were using generative AI to create some of the aspects in this image, such as, for example, foggy condition and this kind of stuff. Then I am going to illustrate other example going to other kind of application linked to what we do for anomaly detection on time series. So we are using generative adversarial networks to do anomaly detection. This is a quite efficient approach. And we do that for predictive maintenance, for prognosis and health management. We also try to recognize the speech in the cockpit. And in order to have a more robust process, also we use generative AI to create different kind of speech with different type of accent, so that we can improve the robustness of our speech to text algorithm. Another example, it's going to be the last one, is linked to what we do in hybrid modeling. So hybrid modeling is about coupling physics-based simulation and real data coming from test benches, for example. So we have been using generative AI to put together information which we are getting in the aerodynamic domain. So on the one side, we have information coming from the test bed on the flying aircraft on the wind tunnels. On the other side, we have the numerical simulation model for computational fluid dynamics. And in fact, we train a generative model to really fuse this information so that we could have extrapolation of what we have from the test data to the complete domain of operation. And this is something which is quite promising, still in the research phase. So where we are now, I mean, now the generative AI capabilities are becoming really much more mature, and we see, like everyone else, the rise of ChatGPT, Midjourney, and other generative tools. So we have set up in Airbus a dedicated generative AI task force to really be more efficient at doing the technology monitoring, looking at all potential use cases which we can have both for text, for image, for code, and many others. Speech is another one. Also, we are working really on the guidelines for ethical and responsible use of generative AI. I mean, it was already said. I mean, we are a company, we are making business. We need to make sure we will use it in a compliant way, and that we will be able to ensure we have the right level of trust in results, both for what we do and for our customers. Also, I mean, we are looking for setting up the right partnerships. So really buying some solutions, but also partner with external companies to build custom solutions for what we want to do. And we also invest on building our own generative AI bricks. So we were speaking previously about the large language models for text. So we are assessing what it would mean for us to build some of these large language model. We have already experience on using some of these large language model on small perimeter, but now we would like to scale that to more general use case inside Airbus. And this is really, I mean, all of that is part of a new kind of a galaxy. I mean, I used Midjourney to generate the image which is in the background, but there are so many things to explore at the same time that we really are on the beginning of our journey. And this is where we are going. Sorry, but the clicker. So yeah, just to finish on with this presentation, I would like to highlight the key message. So the key message is we are not, I mean, generative AI is not new in Airbus. As you have seen in the previous example, we are able to already create value for Airbus and for our customers using generative AI. And the best example is this aspect of super resolution of satellite imagery. There will be a link so you can test it by yourself to see what how better are the image which are generated using super resolution. But yeah, we need to be clear, we are at the beginning of our journey. Technology is evolving extremely rapidly. So this is really a domain where we need to learn fast. And we are setting at the moment the right organization inside the Airbus to learn efficiently on generative AI technology. And yeah, this is what I want to say to you. I'm happy to take questions. I have included in the slides, which I'm happy to share, some links of the story pointing to the scientific publication which we made so far on generative AI, and also the large language models which we built internally. So you will be able to look into these links when the presentation will be sent to you. And yes, I'm happy to answer some questions if there are some.
Great. First of all, thanks a lot, Romaric, for leading us into the world of Airbus, propelled by AI. It's not the first time that you're sharing insights out of your company. One of the questions that raised was more about the human being, more about, like you said, you build up a generative AI task force. How did you do this? Like, what were the biggest challenges actually to put together a task force? What kind of people did you onboard there?
Yeah, in fact, you're right. One of the challenges is to assemble the right team, and for sure you need engineers and people who are knowledgeable about AI. So these ones were quite obvious. We do have AI teams and AI research teams, so we had this one. But you also need to get the legal partners, the procurement colleagues, the security colleagues, and you need to get them all together so that we can move quite quickly on this topic. Because some of the stuff you can start to create value just by using stuff like stuff as ChatGPT. For some others, you really need to build your own generative AI, and it's going to be a more longer journey. But yeah, you have to assemble all these people together to look at all the aspects.
Mm-hmm. Another question that will be the last one due to our time. Can the accuracy of measurements to reality be guaranteed with super resolution on satellite images?
So in fact, when you do super resolution, you don't invent information because there is no way. I mean, we've not trained the system to invent information. So indeed, we can measure this accuracy, and we can especially see for some specific pattern the way we are. The way we are modifying the image, so to make sure that indeed we go with something which in fact is closer to reality. We are in fact removing some blur from the instrument, if you want to understand, to make it short.
Okay, thanks. Great,
but we are
thanks a
using
lot.
AI to remove this blur.
Great, thanks a lot, Romaric, for sharing your insights and being with us again. And see you hopefully soon again on stage.
Yes, thank you very much. See you.
See you. And now, dear global AI audience, generative AI, what lies behind and how it propels business. Our next expert panel discussion with 5 experts located on 4 continents, Noel, Jacques, Andreas, Jaren, Uri. Let me extend a warm welcome on you for our stage, also from the whole team backstage. Jacques, besides that you are an AI ambassador of SwissCognitive and chairing this discussion, I will take the liberty to introduce you first. Dear audience, Jacques, Andy, and I started our partnership actually back in 2017. Jacques definitely belongs to one of our oldest fellows and AI ambassadors. A huge thank you, first of all, Jacques, from all of us for remaining with us and supporting us with all your insights and experience. You are a smart tech entrepreneur, AI expert, author, and speaker with a PhD in AI, and especially that for over 25 years experience in AI and data science. As the founder and CEO of Cortex Group, Cortex Logic, Wife Teens, and Journey Wellness, you have built and sold Africa's first AI companies, systems to General Electric, authoring books like Democratizing AI to Benefit Everyone and Neutral Networks and Psychopathology. This is like breaks my tongue.
Psychopathology.
Thank you. You have held various leadership roles and received numerous awards, including Africa's AI Leader of the Year. Jacques, very warm welcome on our stages once again. With you, we have Noël. Is it great to see you with us again, too? Noël, you are a multi-awarded winning technologist and entrepreneur specializing in emerging technology, cloud, AI, and Web3. With experience leading teams at NPR, Microsoft, IBM, and Amazon Alexa, you are a champion for the ethical use of AI and tech influences. As a founder of AI Leadership Institute and an AI executive at IBM, you teach women and people of color how to harness the power of technology and influence for success in business and life. You have received the Microsoft Most Valuable Professional Award for AI and VentureBeat's Women in AI Responsibility and Ethics Award. Welcome, Noël, and congrats for that. Together with you, we have another AI ambassador of SwissCognitive, Andreas. Welcome. You are an internationally recognized AI leader in the software industry, also with over 21 years of experience. Having led regional business development teams for AI and built an AI center of excellence, you have managed stakeholders' relationships across Fortune 500 companies in more than 80 innovation projects. Your work has helped create an AI mindset across organizations, now extending to the use of generative AI. Thanks for joining the panel, Andreas. Jair, another AI ambassador of our SwissCognitive community. Thanks for being with us. You are a visionary leader in the field of artificial intelligence with a passion for bridging the gap between technology and people. I just love it. With over 15 years of experience in IT leadership and diverse background, you excel in combining technology experience with business acumen, data science, ethics, and design. As the analyst and insights leader at Volvo Group, you drive success and evolve the company to become data-driven while shaping the future of technology to benefit both people and business. With you, we have another AI ambassador of our SwissCognitive community, Uri. Shalom from Israel. You are a consultant for companies seeking to add AI capabilities to their services and products, helping them choose and implement the best AI solutions for their needs. As the founder of Israel's largest AI community, Machine and Deep Learning Israel, you have brought together over 30,000 leading AI talents. You have also been part of national committees responsible for establishing Israel's strategy in the AI field and have spoken about AI on stages worldwide. Now, dear Jacques, may I hand over to you and rock the stage with your panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Alit. Can everybody hear me clearly? Especially the panelists? Fantastic. I don't see Noël yet, but at least I can see Andreas and I can also see Jair. So we'll take it from there. So this particular session is going to be interesting. I know the previous one talked about the hype and kind of the unhype, underhype, overhype around generative AI. And what we would like to do here is to have a panel discussion talking about generative AI, what lies behind it, and how it actually propels businesses. So I'm going to start individually with some specific questions, and then I'll also throw up some questions to the panel, like panel-wide questions. So we don't have Noël's, but I would like to start with Andreas. Andreas, specifically, if I look at kind of your background, specifically your expertise in marketing and solutions management, I know you obviously represent SAP, but you're also here in your own individual capacity. But what would you say are the most significant ways generative AI is shaping marketing strategies and customer engagement? And then as a follow-up on that, how can businesses leverage these kind of advancements as well?
So I think, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to be here today. I think if you look at generative AI and you already look before the hype around it and ChatGPT before that came along in November, one of the prime areas for generative AI is in marketing and sales. we see that a lot of generative AI tools are out there that help you create copy that tailor it to your specific needs, to your business, to your tone, to your voice and language that you use. And that's where I see a lot of opportunity, right? It's not only just the marketing copy and writing blogs, but tools like ChatGPT can be an excellent sparring partner for you to bounce off ideas and get a different perspective. Right? You can ask ChatGPT to act and role play with you. So take the persona of your target persona, maybe that you're selling to a chief financial officer. So in that persona, what are the top 3 or 5 things that you care about in your business, and how then again would a marketer craft copy, craft value statements to address what you are looking for? I think that's one prime area for certain.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to continue on that vein. I also want to talk about AI literacy. I know you've got some very specific opinions on that. But before we go to you again, back to you, Jair, I would love to, with your background specifically in the Volvo Group and Kimberly Clark and IBM Watson, if you think about automotive and consumer goods industries, and I know you love data. You mentioned that. So as a Europe,
Back.
fantastic. I can see Noel now. Great. We're going to continue. So Jahir, I know you love data. And if you heard the question, I can just rephrase very briefly. As an analytics leader, how do you see generative AI enhancing data-driven decision making and driving innovation, specifically within your context? I know you're in the automotive and consumer goods industry.
Yeah, definitely. I love data, and I'm really fixing on the idea that we need to talk more about the data when we are talking about generative AI. For
Sure.
sure, I see a lot of benefits of this technology in the manufacturing industry, for example, apart from the classic examples that on exploring new designs and discover new materials, for example. But there is also a lot of opportunities on enhancing data analytics in this industry. So
Yes.
data analytics, it's natural way to get decisions made by the data. For example, we with the using the right amount, the right technology for this, we can have generative AI to help us to analyze a large amount of data or identify patterns, and also even with a with the right training predict outcomes. So with this we're going to improve a lot of efficiency, and we can also think of new ways, really unprecedented ways to reduce cost, and in this particular case, enhance safety in a way that we've been using analytics before. We use statistics, we'll be using machine learning. Now we can add this new layer of understanding that's come from generative to really will help leadership, but not only the leadership, help everyday activities in the company to take better decisions. So, for example, we can mention, for example, how we can analyze. Patrick before mentioned about the financial reports analyzing with ChatGPT, for example. But this is one example of I totally agree with him that we need to be very careful on the outcomes of that. But there are also a lot of opportunities on this
Oh,
if
yeah.
we are right doing this in the right way from the data perspective, the inputs that we pass into these large models.
I fully agree with you here. I think it's important from a sense-making perspective to have a balanced view. And I think Patrick was right in terms of, I'm not sure if it's decades and things. I think he made some statements around that. But I think I like the prudence and there's a huge responsibility. So we need to be very, very smart in terms of how we do this. And Noel, I'm going to quickly go to you. I'm so glad you joined. I love that inclusion there. That's what you stand for. I'm standing for democratizing AI to benefit
That's
everyone.
right.
So we are aligned. I just want to just quickly ask you, how do you envision generative AI transforming traditional industries? You work at Accenture, you are a chief AI strategist and a global AI solutions lead. And if you think about which sectors do you believe will be most impacted? We can just talk a little bit about that. And then we'll also talk about responsible generative AI as well, because I know you've got a lot to say about that.
Of course. Yeah, I would, I actually think this is one of the first times where, I'd say in the last 10 years that it has been very cross functional. So not just across a bunch of industries, but business functions as well. So I'm seeing a lot of application across any business in marketing, in finance and procurement, in legal, in sales even. But if I had to pick a few, and I do want to pick a few, there are some that are extremely compelling. And it's not unlike maybe what we saw this kind of the first wave of productized, democratized AI around healthcare, right? I think there's a lot of really very interesting use cases in healthcare. I myself am a caregiver. I care for my dad who's aging, and just thinking about patient care coordination, all of the hassle that we have to go through just to get an appointment, keep an appointment, make sure we're meeting with the right doctor, make sure they have the right context for why we're meeting, make sure they even know the medication we're using. All of this, even 6 months ago, was much harder than it is today with this technology. So I think there's a huge opportunity to reduce friction for people. And maybe on a less, I think that's pretty noble. I like the idea of making just patient care better. But I also think about education. And my son, he has Down syndrome. And so I'm always thinking through the lens of like children with special needs and kids and learning. And now I realize, I have 6 kids total now, but I realized that the individualized education that I built for him, I actually wanted for all my kids, even though they were typically developing. And now, again, with something like GPT, educational systems can build personalized education plans in a way that we never saw before. So I think, it's maybe more of the AI for good side of the house. There's lots of places, retail, lots of places this can be used. But those are 2 areas I think I'm probably the most passionate about.
Fantastic, Noel. I think that sounds fantastic. Uri, I would love to get to you as well. I know you're doing some fantastic work in Israel.
Thanks.
How can business effectively incorporate generative AI into their existing workflows? And what do you think are the main challenges that they might face during the implementation around this?
So thank you. The thing that I think will be most relevant for businesses is dependent if the solution is going to be consumer facing or to be in the background, helping the employees to do their job. Because if it's consumer facing, I highly suggest them to use GPT and technologies like this in a very concerned way, because sometimes we can see that those models could say wrong things, and this will be very problematic. So I highly suggest them. For example, I'm working with one of the largest banks here in Israel, and we are working on a project that the GPT will help people to understand when is the bank is open, on what kind of services you can get there. So you cannot get too much wrong and get some PR problems with that, but in the behind the scenes, you can help the employees of the bank to ask more difficult questions. Let's say a customer comes to them and asks, what is my last income that was more than $10,000 and wasn't originally for work that I did in the last several months? So this could help the employee to give him better answers and maybe create some charts and draft out of it. So I highly make the separation of if it's consumer facing or not. And also the problem and the struggle is that sometimes organizations do not fully understand what is the product that they are trying to implement this technology in. Because as you all probably know, when there is a new technology, everyone is getting very, very fascinated. They want to build something around that, but sometimes they are forgetting that the technology is not everything. This technology lives inside a product, so you need to understand where does it live, what is the customer see, what other feedback does he get, and this is something that a lot of companies forget because they are so eager to use this technology, but they're not fully understand how to do it in the right way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Andreas, I want to get back to you, and I know you actually had some post on LinkedIn. I think you participated in another conference. We also talked about AI literacy and responsibilities around the individual user as well, but also obviously, I think Patrick talked about quite a bit in terms of the responsibilities from a business point of view. As well. But you want to quickly comment on that specifically? Thanks.
Sure. So I think there are new opportunities that generative AI and tools like ChatGPT provide us with, especially also in a business context, right? Think about productivity, and like you mentioned, sparing partner to some degree, or helping you kickstart a draft or an idea. And so what I believe is what is becoming more and more critical is developing a sense of AI literacy, meaning that we personally and individually and also in our business roles have a better understanding of is this AI? Is it not AI? What does it do? What can I use it for? And also what are some of the boundaries and boundary conditions that I should be aware of? Right? So for example, please don't put any personal information into tools like ChatGPT, or don't put any confidential information there. It might give you some good results, right? But you're really not in control of what happens with the data once you put it in there. Does it make it into the next training run? Is it something that somebody can reconstruct? Or also with human feedback in the loop, is it something that maybe somebody will take a look at and review? So be very mindful in how you use this technology. But if you stay away from, confidential information and personal information, it can be a huge advantage and time saver and productivity gain.
Absolutely. Jair, just we started talking about data and data-driven decision making, etc., and stuff. Can you share? I know it's early days around generative AI, but it would be interesting. Is there any lessons learned or success stories or anything on generative AI solutions in the areas that you specifically work that you're aware of?
Yeah, it's definitely early to mention because everything is going too fast. Everyone is jumping on the technology in many aspects. But we can see, for example, in the manufacturing perspective, how companies are starting to use generative AI to explore new parts design, for example,
Product design.
for vehicles. We saw beautiful examples from Airbus before, but also in the fashion design, for example, H&M is using generative AI for their very personalized design for t-shirts, etc. I can see that also in the automotive manufacturing, that it's going to hit the industry very soon. I know that all the competitors in today are exploring this somehow, and I believe that the first areas that it's going to hit in a more scaled aspect, it's around on part design, but also in the manufacturer. But behind the manufacturer, there is a lot of interest on the industry on optimize their process that lead to the manufacturing. So I see a wave of innovation coming from generative design that is, as Noel mentioned, it's really cross department, it's cross everything. It's so we cannot exclude anyone, any department, any division of any big company or small company from this wave. So, but to put the feet on the ground, I would like to also remember that whatever we will get from this depend a lot of how we're going to treat the data that we need, the data quality that we are
Absolutely.
using. It's fundamental for wherever we're going to have as an outcome.
Absolutely. And well, as an analytics and insights leader, I think you obviously think about data infrastructure. If you want to fine tune the models and all of those kind of things. So there's a lot of things that one needs to think about right now in anticipation of those business value driver or that business cases that you would like to develop there. But I want to quickly go to Noel. So we started talking. I think I wanted really zooming onto responsible generative AI. I think it's a big topic. I know in terms of risk and challenges, there's quite a bit about that. Do you want to quickly talk about responsible generative AI from your perspective, and also what you do within Accenture? How Accenture thinks about it?
Absolutely. I actually think it's interesting because we've all talked about it at least at some level, right? In just what we've talked about so far. But I think it's a way of really applying things we already know. You know, now we've seen productized AI. I've got this Google alert that says AI gone wrong, and I get examples every day of practices where we have not thought thoroughly about how we might implement this. And it starts, for example, with data and making sure that we're building with inclusive data sets. And then also, though, building an inclusive team that knows when to ask the right question, that is critical in their thinking and designing of a solution. We often call it design justice, right? Not just what's the happy path of how this will work, but what are some of the consequences? And then many people here who already, our audience knows AI, they understand the implications of transparency and explainability, but it's very different on a model that's trained on data we don't have lineage to. We don't understand where it came from. And it's very difficult. It's a black box. And that's kind of the point, right? We want a black box. We don't want to train it. But at the same time, it's our responsibility with this great capability to think more thoroughly about how do we moderate a model that can amplify bias we have no idea that's in there. So this is where human in the loop becomes extremely critical. And I know, like everyone here, like I said, we talk about this all the time as more of like a thread that we weave through every solution. But I think it's nice to call out. So I really appreciate you giving us a chance to talk about it.
Awesome. That's fantastic. Yes. So Uri, I just wanted to quickly, you're doing wonderful work in Israel, and you've commented quickly on your things there in terms of what businesses can do to effectively incorporate generative AI. But what about startups and smaller businesses with limited resources? How can they harness the power of generative AI to remain competitive and innovative in their respective industries?
So first, this is what I say to most companies that are a little bit small is do not invent the wheel. You can use off-the-shelf products. There are amazing APIs that you can use, or maybe to use some open source tools. And this is something very important because companies, especially startups, need to understand what is their core technology. And if it's something that you are not aiming to develop by yourself, you can use tools, and there are plenty of them that could be relevant and suitable for your needs. Moreover, it's important to stay updated and see if the existing tools that you are already using have implemented these kind of technologies. For example, HubSpot and Salesforce have announced several weeks ago that they are releasing their own version of ChatGPT that can link to your CRM. And this is amazing. You don't need to develop anything. You don't need to do anything. Just use the technology that other companies already providing and already developing for you. So this is like my main two tips. A, use on-the-shelf product. You do not need to invent anything. Basically, if it's not your core technology, if this is not the thing that you are best at. And B, always open your ears and look for the services that you are already using and look if they develop this kind of technologies for you. And this could be very relevant also. And above all that, and this is the last tip that many companies do not do, small and big, organize your data. No matter if you are doing that with off-the-shelf or on-the-shelf product, or if you're developing a $1 million project, if your data is not well organized, it's no matter if you will choose this solution or other. So make sure that your data is organized and then look for the product that you can use.
Absolutely fantastic. I think we're entering into the last 6-7 minutes here, so I want to go panel wide. So, and I feel free to quickly respond to this as well. So, I think Noel talked about responsible generative AI and so forth. So we know ethical considerations are super important. So the question is around what if you think about ethical considerations and stuff, what should be taken into account as businesses adopt generative AI technologies? And then as a follow-up on that, how can we ensure that these technologies are used responsibly and don't inadvertently perpetuate biases and inequality? Now, Noel's got that inclusion there, so maybe we should start with you, and then Andreas, you can quickly go after that, and then we'll continue.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I kind of feel like I said my piece, but I'll add one more thing to that and let Andreas kind of follow up with that as well. I really think it's important that organizations realize how important the decisions they make at the beginning are. Because right now, right, Jair, you met how excited people are. Everyone is wanting to build and experiment. And they don't realize, especially coming from being at the beginning of Alexa and at the beginning of cognitive services, like you don't realize how important those early days, those experimental days are to how you'll serve the billions of users you might have later. And so I think, I believe in learning by doing. I think that is part of our responsibility, but I also think there really needs to be like a framework for scale, even when you're not there yet, right? You need to think about scale much earlier, and honestly in the design phase. And as a data scientist, make a UX designer your best friend. Find someone who understands your users and make them your best friend.
Andreas, what do you think? Do you agree? Oh,
we cannot hear you.
You're muted.
Sorry. So to me, building on that, right, ethics and responsibility have already been core again before generative AI has come along, and we have built a sense of awareness. Some better, some with room for improvement. But what is key to me is how generative AI changes the game in the sense that previously a company used to build AI into their product, and that was pretty much within the four walls of that company, whether they used it themselves or they made it available externally. Now with generative AI, each and every one of us that use these tools need to be aware of the ethical implications, right? It's one thing to use generative AI to bounce off ideas, get started with a document. It's another to just copy and paste this, right? Without checking. So and then again, to that point, perpetuating biases that might be inherent in the training data, but that also might be there in the output. So my recommendation would be, if you're using it as a tool, it's your responsibility to double check what the output is, if it does make sense, and if it is something that you would want to have your name attributed to, whether you have written this yourself or used AI to do that.
Absolutely. And I just want to quickly hop onto the last question here, and then I will have Jair and everybody comment, and Uri. So I think we talked about, if you think about the potential risks and challenges that businesses and society must prepare for. And I actually put out a guest article on SwissCognitive where I talked about this specifically, also the applications. But if you think about job displacement, privacy, security, and there's some other risks and challenges as well. Would you like to comment quickly on that? And also just how can we mitigate these risks and challenges? So Jair, and then Uri, and then we can go to Noel and Andreas.
Well, honestly, we'll follow the answer that Noel put about what we are doing here today. We are learning here today, but we must be responsible to think that we can impact billions of people with this one. So even That's why this responsibility is so important in this early phase. So when it comes to job displacement, even statistically considering that we're going to impact billions of people, this is one of the hot topic that we should have now. There's no silver bullet for that, because we know that every revolution changed the job marketing from the steam power to today. It's happened, but
Yeah.
we can do in a better way today that was done in the previous revolution. We learn from them. So today we have one opportunity: education.
Yeah.
Business leaders and companies has a powerful tool in their hands that educate people that will be impacted by this. Some of people will use this technology as customers. Some of people
Yeah.
will drive this, but everyone should have the possibility to benefit from this. And personally, I believe that companies has a great opportunity to educate people on these new technologies and put them in condition to benefit from that.
Fantastic. I fully agree. Democratizing AI to benefit everyone.
Exactly.
Uri, Uri, what's your take on that?
I will say it briefly. There is all say that AI won't take your job. People who use AI will take it. So just stay updated, keep learning all the new tools, try to understand how you can use that for your own job, and that's it. You will be bulletproof.
Absolutely. Human plus machine will
Yeah,
be
a
human.
perfect match.
Okay, fantastic. I think we're over time here. So thank you very much for the whole panel. You were awesome. Really loved it. And looking forward to further conversations. And back to Dalit. Dalit.
Thanks a lot. Huge thanks to all of you. I know, I mean, these 30 minutes just went by very fast. Great insights. And as you all know me, I love this human and machine. And it's really about empowering human with technology, but actually, we're also empowering technology with human. So thanks a lot to all of you again for being with us. Dear audience, reach out to Noel, Jacques, Andreas, Jair, Uri. If you have any further questions, they're here for you, for all of us. Share experience and share for success. Take care and see you soon.
Thank you.
And now, generative AI opening new worlds. This technology is indeed opening up new words. It helps us to gain focused insights into information jungles and also gain understanding in ways we didn't have the opportunity before. Through the next use case, we would like to showcase exactly that, how this technology can help us to open up new words and communicate like never before. Ben, I'm happy to welcome you on our virtual stage, joining us today from London. Great to have you with us here. Ben studied for a PhD in sign language production from the University of Surrey, specializing in the synthesis of photorealistic digital humans in the context of sign language. He has multiple publications in top of computer visioning conferences and recently won the Innovator of the Year award at Surrey University. Congrats, Ben. In addition, Ben is co-founder and CTO of Signapse, whose mission is to build automatic sign language translation to increase deaf accessibility globally. Dear Ben, let me hand over. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Dalit. Thank you very much for the introduction. Yeah, so Ben Saunders from London, kind of CTO and co-founder of Signapse. So Signapse, can't see, oh, there we go. So kind of first I talk a little bit about Signapse and kind of what we're doing and what we're trying to use generative AI to do. So for us, we quite strongly believe that in the world right now, there's a lot of deaf people who often struggle to read basic English. A lot of them find that if they've grown up using mainly only sign language, they can struggle to understand English, particularly if it's often a second language, something they've learned later on in life when they've mainly relied on sign language at the beginning. So we kind of wanted to kind of come up with a solution to help this. The current solution is that in the world there's sign language interpreters. However, there's not actually that many interpreters in the world compared to the amount of deaf people that there are in the world. Only around one interpreter for every 300 deaf persons in the world. This means that a lot of deaf people are quite disconnected from basic information, and there's actually kind of a lot of legislation in this area that mandates that basic accessibility rights for deaf consumers should be available. So kind of at Signapse, we've worked on quite a lot coming up with a solution to that problem. The main solution that we've come up with is automatic sign language translation using AI. So as you can see there on the left, this is an output of our model using generative AI. We're really proud that that model generates photorealistic avatars. So our digital signer is indistinguishable from a human interpreter. This is something that's really important because a lot of the deaf community, the previous state of the art, was using cartoon avatars. And we find that cartoon avatars are quite disliked. They're quite simplistic. And so we really care about making our outputs look exactly like a human. For the deaf person who's trying to understand that content, they're used to seeing sign language done by a person. And so that video, it should look nothing but a human. Also, because it's now done via AI, we can scale up those translations and improve more accessibility in the world and really kind of provide more sign language content where it hasn't been done before, meaning that more translation is available. This is complementary to interpretation. We're not trying to steal, we're not trying to take interpreter jobs. We're kind of making more translation available in places where it's currently difficult. So I did have a demo here to share. I'm not sure if the video is going to work, so I'm just going to kind of go through a few slides of it instead. Oh, there we go.
This train don't carry no gamblers, this train. This train don't carry no gamblers, this train. This train don't carry no gamblers, no crap shooters or midnight ramblers. This train don't carry no gamblers, this train. Well, this train is bound for glory, this train. This train is bound for glory, this train. This train is bound for glory, don't carry nothing but the righteous and the holy. This train is bound for glory, this train. This train goes down the track, this train. This train goes down the track, this train. This train goes down the track, and once you're on board, you don't come back. This train goes down the track.
Yes, so the videos you're seeing here are synthetically generated sign language videos. So these are generated from the text below of it. You can see that the kind of information is one, photorealistic, but also in sign language and therefore really helpful for a deaf person. So you can see here, it's live in some London tube stations where you can see that content is shown on a digital screen and is really, really impactful and helpful for deaf consumers. So deaf customer there who's kind of really interested in and finds that the information is a lot better for him to access via video in sign language rather than in the English text. We think it's kind of a really helpful way that AI can improve content here and make the world more accessible for deaf people. Kind of show there a little bit about how that technology is run, kind of how we generate all those synthetic videos we've shown. Something that we're really proud of that currently hasn't been available previously. It would be quite difficult to film all the different applications and different combinations that you need in sign language via a human, and so AI is really helpful to improve the accessibility that can be offered there. So these are just a few kind of clips from that video. I'm not sure if the video is going to work. And so something that, again, we're really proud of at Signapse and something that's really important is the fact that all our digital signers, all the videos that you see are photorealistic. We should find that all of those should be indistinguishable from a human interpreter. And kind of the AI technology that we use to do that is called generative adversarial networks, and that they're really skilled at generating videos of people that look like real people. Something that my PhD was focused on, kind of generating how do we apply this technology to the application of sign language, and kind of how can it be useful in that space. Again, that technology can be driven by human recorded sign language videos. So we can give it as an input, kind of a few different pre-recorded sentences, combine them together to generate a new sentence. And kind of the initial input from that was the text that came from. So in the transport domain, that text is usually up on a big screen. Whereas now, if you give it to Signapse instead, we can provide that in a video, something that we find is really impactful and important for our deaf travelers. This slide kind of shows a little bit more about the technology behind the scenes. So on the right is our photorealistic digital signer that's been synthetically generated by Signapse. You can see on the left the original video, and in the middle is the pose of that original video that is used as the input to our photorealistic digital signer. So you can see here that if you move that pose, you can change the photorealistic digital signer's output and therefore generate a new sign language video that's accessible. We have a few ways that we show this technology at the moment, as I kind of showed in the video earlier, mainly focusing on the transport domain. So those are shown on digital screens in a lot of the UK train stations. They can be really helpful for deaf passengers who often get quite lost and they don't understand the tannoy announcements, they don't understand the departure delay announcements, and they can often feel like they're missing out. And so our content can be used to make them more accessible. Additionally, we can provide website translation. Again, a lot of websites contain a lot of text, and deaf people do often struggle a little bit to understand that block of text, just because if they've learned English as a second language, they're more used to sign language. And so again, it's kind of providing more accessibility through the use of AI. I wanted to end my talk kind of just talking about some real use cases of our technology and sort of the impact that it's having on some people's lives. So we recently integrated with a company called Transpennine Express, a train operator in the north of England. We launched our sign language videos on their station in December. We kind of integrate with the data feeds in order to generate all of the departing trains from that location. It's something that's really important. We've kind of got feedback from deaf community in that area that would make them more likely to travel. They feel a lot more included. And that's kind of showcasing the power of generative AI. When we kind of put that technology in the station, we did some deaf consultations with local deaf users, and there was a unanimous positive feedback that made them more likely to travel, and made them more likely to use the train station because there was kind of access in their first language, something that we're really passionate about at Signapse and can really kind of highlight that generative AI can be used for the positive. Generating new videos that wasn't previously done before AI can be really used as a positive to improve accessibility globally. Yeah, that's kind of my talk. Hopefully everyone can understand a bit about Signapse and kind of what we do and use generative AI to make the world a better place. Happy to take a few questions if possible.
Indeed. First of all, thanks a lot, Ben, for these great insights. And this is exactly what we love, to see how technology, emerging technology, can actually be implemented to support us, the human being. And I'm just thinking of, I have been on the train last week, and there was, you won't believe, even in Switzerland, a delay because we had some technical problems. Who else? So we got some messages like that you had to be aware of, okay, which train can you take instead and how long does it take? And it was so loud and I barely understood what were they saying. And I actually had to run to be on stage. So I was really under pressure. And now listening to you, I think, these are small situations where we kind of normal people understand how disabled people in whatever disabled they have are actually, they don't have a chance. And it's so nice to see use cases, how technology can support these people. So one of the questions that came in is like, what kind of accuracy levels do you see with AI sign language compared to human?
Yeah, Good question. So within the transport domain, which is the main domain that we're working on right now, because the language is quite simple and the messages are quite repetitive, it's got high quality in that area. We make sure that every video we generate has been proofed by a deaf person in our team, and just to make sure that that content is understandable. Towards our ultimate goal of doing any translation from English sentence, the quality is probably not there yet, but it's something that we care about a lot, not kind of releasing it only when it's ready, only when it can actually be understandable and useful. So it's kind of, yeah, hopefully see this space in a few years, it'll become more understandable and more quality, and you can see more sign language content in the world.
Great, thanks. Then we have a more technical question. Someone asks if you can tell a little bit more about the algorithm.
Yeah, sure. So our algorithm uses generative adversarial networks that are pose conditioned. So that means that for every frame of video, you give it a sign language pose. So the kind of written pose of someone's hands and their face and their movements. If you give that into our algorithm, it generates a photorealistic video from those poses. So it will be based off the appearance of a real person, but importantly, doing new sign language movements. Once you kind of give it different frames of a full video, you can then produce a full video of sign language, both kind of temporally accurate, but also kind of accurate against the pose. Some work that I kind of researched in my PhD, recently kind of commercialized. Kind of also important for us to generate different appearances. We kind of give the user some choice over what those appearances are, all based off kind of deaf actors who we work with and kind of have consent with to produce.
Great. Okay, thanks. There is no time for the question, but I would like to share with you that the audience in the chat, we're very happy to hear about your solution. And again, it's really what I love to see, how technology can support the human being in their daily life. Dear audience, don't hesitate to reach out to Ben via social media for any further questions. Thanks again, Ben. I wish you all the best and hope to see you soon, and especially hope to see your solution all around where it can support the human being.
Amazing. Thank you.
Now it's time for our next expert panel discussion. So where is the catch? Challenges and solutions. Andrea, another AI ambassador of SwissCognitive, is joining us and chairing the next panel. Andrea, you are one of the most sought after keynote speakers on digital transformation, leadership, and AI globally. With over 200 keynotes per year, you share your thoughts and ideas in the intersection of business, technology, philosophy, and neuroscience. And I have to say a huge thank you that one of the stages is ours. Your experience includes serving as the head of Tinder in Latin America for 5 years and as the chief digital officer of L'Oréal in Brazil. As an influential voice in tech world, you continue to inspire and educate individuals and organizations on the importance of embracing digital innovation and transformation. With you in the channel, we have Daniela, another AI ambassador of the SwissCognitive community. Hi, Andrea. You are the head of Data and AI Center of Excellence at Capgemini and have over 19 years of experience in initiating, developing, and realizing transformation. Previously, you were part of BMW Group for a decade, where you were responsible for the corporate AI strategy and led the AI hub of the Center of Excellence. In May 22, you joined Capgemini as the head of AI Automotive to help clients elevate their data value chain sustainable from data to analytics to intelligence. As a thought leader, you focus on data value creation and sustainable human-centric solution. Your commitment to empowering women in tech, coding for kids, and digital sovereignty of society is commendable. Now, this is also one of the reasons why, although Daniela and I haven't met personally yet, we met a common friend via the network and Women in Tech. So again, thanks to you, Daniela. that I was able to meet Anna actually because of you. With you on stage, yeah, this is part of our network, and I think this is very nice, especially after COVID. With you, we have Ori. Shalom, Ori. You are a seasoned entrepreneur and a graduate of IDF's Elite Intelligent Unit 8200. With a successful track record of founding AI 21 Labs, you also co-founded CrowdX, a network analytic company that was acquired by Cellwise. Your experience includes serving as a product manager at Fring, where you led the development of the first ever VoIP and messaging app for iPhone and Android. With over 15 years of experience in technology and product leadership roles, you continue to drive innovation and growth in the tech industry. With you on stage, we have Dimitris, another AI ambassador out of our community. Dimitris, hi. You are the executive director of the Global Health and Digital Innovation Foundation in UK and hold a PhD in AI in medicine. With 20 years in global health, you have advised prominent organizations such as the World Bank, WHO, EU Commission, UNICEF, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. You have played an instrumental role in developing health innovation ecosystem worldwide and in resilience and recovery planning during the COVID-19 public health crisis. As a founder and workstream leader of the IEEE SA value-based pre-standard for healthcare and life science, you continue to shape the future of healthcare. Thanks for that. And last but not least, we have Sean, you are the founder and CEO of Upsti and a leading generative AI drug creation company with a mission to create better biologics for patients faster. I'm happy to be one of your guinea pigs. As a visionary entrepreneur, you have built Upsti from a basement lab to a publicly traded company striving to create therapeutics at the click of a button. Under your leadership, Upsi has scaled to over 200 employees, raised over $450 million in capital, established numerous industry-leading partnerships, and built an integrated drug creation platform that merged cutting-edge generative AI models with proprietary high-throughput wet lab data. First of all, sorry for my language. It gets quite dry after 3 hours. So, dear panelists, Andrea, Daniela, Ori, Dimitri, and Jean, I'm happy to hand over to you and rock the virtual stage.
Thank you so much, Dalit. And first of all, good morning, good afternoon, good night to everyone in the audience, depending on where you are in the world. Congrats, Andy and Dalit and SwissCognitive for putting together such a great event. And without further introduction, thanks, Dalit, for explaining who's who on the panel. I wanted to start the discussion. Hey, Andy. I wanted to start the discussion with Daniela. And so I wanted to set the tone here and talk about the potential catches, related to generative AI, which is the topic of this panel. And Daniela, you have a great deal of experience in automotive, especially in autonomous driving, and hundreds of data-driven use cases along the entire value chain of the intelligent industry. And since this year, though, your responsibilities have extended across the industry. So my question is, will generative AI redefine business performance? I guess so. But what are the challenges for industry and what is your solution approach?
Thank you, Andrea, for that question. At first, I would say artificial intelligence is already disrupting the entire industry. So the technology is there and it will not go away before it's in everywhere. And concerning generative AI and especially pre-trained models and the multimodal approach, I think that is kind of quantum leap we are looking forward to, and that will change the human-machine interaction. So let's come to chances and solutions. What I see at the moment is, on the one side, it's exciting, and on the other side, it's frightening. Let's come to the positive side, to the chances. So What I really like at the moment is that we see that the entire society is testing and talking about ChatGPT. We saw in the last years an increasing trustworthiness, 2018, 30%, 2020, up to 50% concerning the technology. And everybody, kids, top management, wives, university and schools are talking about that technology. So we have a broad participation with that AI technologies, which is great because we have an increasing technology knowledge. And I think that is setting a great baseline to develop trustworthy and explainable solutions. But on the other hand, I see really, really challenges at the moment because we see a lot of fear. The ones are feared to losing their jobs. And I don't see that as critical because if we see disruptive technologies in the last centuries, like the steam train, the telephone, the World Wide Web, and then in the 21st century AI, that is just another disruptive technology which will change the way how we work and how we communicate and interact. But I guess there will be more new than disappearing tasks. On the other hand, I just came out of a client meeting with the top management and with AI experts. I see in the discussion, especially concerning generative AI, a little bit of kind of frustration of the AI experts in the corporates because they see or they are feared that we have another hype after the autonomous driving hype. So they did a lot of great jobs in the last years and developed a lot of POCs, and they stuck because of the existing IT infrastructure we sometimes see in the corporates. So what I would like to say as challenge is we see a gap between the technology potential and the existing infrastructures we have in the corporates. And that's why there's also the challenge concerning that integration of generative AI technologies in the corporates. And it seems a little bit like a mission impossible to do that short term. And in a nutshell, as a solution, the solution approach would be start small and learn fast. But I think we can elaborate on that later on.
Definitely. So I'm sure we will come up with great solutions. We have great experts here. Thanks, Daniela. And now I wanted to take a step back from the tech gap that you really very well highlighted. And Audie, looking at the great picture, right? Generative AI faces other challenges as well. I'm sure that, some top of mind challenges you guys face at AI 21. So I wanted to hear from you overall what you would say are the important ones to note, especially based on the work that you do. And going even beyond technology, we can discuss bias, we can discuss ethics. Daniela touched upon the job replacement. What's your take on this, Audie?
Yes. So first of all, thank you for inviting me, and I'm excited to be here and share our perspective. About challenges, so I think first of all, there is a fundamental challenge with the technology. Before I touch different aspects, so as we see these, generative models are very capable, and they seem to kind of spark creativity when we as humans interact with them, and so we can suddenly create all sorts of digital assets, right? Like texts and images and videos and so on and so forth. And the possibilities are just are unbelievable. With that said, this is actually one of the reasons why we started the company as AI21. We see that these models, as powerful as they are, they still lack reasoning and sometimes even very basic reasoning. So you take, for example, arithmetics, very simple operations that we have old school solutions to solve, like the HP calculator from the 70s, and what we see with these gigantic neural nets is that they're excellent at generating creative stuff, but when you look for the type of reliability that required into business applications, and in those applications you need to apply sometimes arithmetic, sometimes logic, sometimes kind of very discrete programmable operations, then there's a huge gap with these models. They're just not designed for it. So I think we should, and I think people experience this in the form of hallucinations. When they interact with the model, sometimes the model just generates things that are illogical or don't make any sense, and that's kind of an artifact. But again, this is due to a more basic reason that these models are not designed for discrete reasoning. And so our belief is that what we are seeing in the future is a combination of more kind of discrete, controllable programs, the way we know them, and this neural approach. These will be hybrid systems that will be embedded mostly in the enterprise context, where reliability and explainability are extremely important. So I think this is just kind of to give a picture of what are the gaps and where we're heading from a technology standpoint. I think in the next couple of years, we'll see a lot of emphasis around reliability and explainability. We've kind of taking a step back. So we think the technology unlocks an enormous amount of productivity gains. Anywhere you look, any profession you can think of is going to be impacted by these generative models and capabilities. So, the impact on society will obviously be a substantial one. I think so. These are the upsides or the gains of the technology, which we will see. I'm sure we will see in the next couple of years. With that said, there's the harms and the safety concerns, which are real, because these models, if put in the wrong hands, could be used for various malicious activities. Anything about propaganda or trying to spreading disinformation about a competitive product. It could be used in many, many bad ways. And I think this is, I think this is a place where we will have to learn as we deploy these systems, and we'll gradually understand what safety nets are required to deploy them so they'll be used safely in the society.
Definitely so, Ari. And I'm interested and curious from other members of the panel to know whether the right data sets or increasing the data sets can solve some of these problems. One, reliability that you mentioned, and the second one might be related to bias or ethical challenges. You finished up your answer on these topics, and therefore taking a segue and taking advantage of Dimitri's expertise. We have a doctor of philosophy with a focus on AI here. I wanted to hear from him about these ethical concerns, right, that generative AI brings about, from bias to data privacy to fake news to even the risk of outsourcing to technology our brain efforts and not think anymore into things, right? Will new generations become addicted to generative AI, or as calculators did in the 80s with our analytical skills, it will enhance them? So, Dimitris, what's your point of view on the ethical concerns and what should we be looking at?
We cannot hear you.
We can hear you, Dimitris. Let's see.
You're mute.
Yes. While Dimitris tries to fix his audio, I wanted to take a segue here and then go to Sean. And Sean, about the job replacement, I'm sure you guys work with discovering new molecules. And so I wanted to get your perspective on, will generative AI replace lab researchers or even physicians in the health sectors, or even writers, musicians, and so on? Or generative AI will enhance their abilities and the two will be able to coexist? What's your take on that, Sean?
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's going to be able to coexist, and I think you're going to replace one skill set with another. If you kind of look at what we're doing here at ABSI, it's being able to go fully in silico or design drug candidates on a computer from scratch. You basically take out all the wet lab work that's needed there. But now what you're able to then focus in on is, okay, what's the biology of these? The scientists that were once focused on the drug discovery can now be focused on the biology of the drugs, how they interact, what potentially the efficacy is going to be. And so I think what you're going to start to see is AI, replacing certain wet lab tasks, and then those individuals then will go to look at bigger, broader problems that AI has yet to solve. And then additionally, there's always data that's needed to be fed into these models, and I think that you're going to continue to have technologies that are developed. Once you solve one problem, you have your AI that's effective at developing a drug candidate. Well, now how is it going to behave in an animal model? Okay, we got to go generate the data there. And so I think like you're going to go on from one data problem to the next, and continuing to train these generative AI models. And then also what we're seeing is that generative AI is actually enhancing and accelerating our understanding of biology. And I believe that it's going to allow us to actually then go and focus our efforts on new novel biology that we don't quite understand, and AI can't tell us what that biology is. And that's where we need human intervention and researchers actually to dive in to those problems. And so I definitely think that it's ultimately going to coexist in the future, but it's not going to be the same world we are in today. At the end of the day, it's going to be an enhanced world, and it's going to be a world where we are getting better drugs to patients faster than ever, increasing success rates in the clinic, and ultimately making healthcare affordable for everyone.
And I think, Sean, one of the things is that definitely you will by outsourcing to technology some of these researchers, and will be able to focus more on other things, more creative endeavors, and so on. Therefore, you kind of like substitute some of the manual, and this has happened many times across history. So I think that's really interesting for you to notice. Dimitri, did you manage to get back the audio? If so, still
no
working a bit on the audio issue. Not a problem, Dimitris. I wanted to therefore address one of the things that actually each one of you mentioned, which is related to data sets. Can I get your perspective, maybe rapidly, based on the experience of each one, Daniela in the automotive, and so on, based on the importance of picking the right data sets in order to avoid some of these challenges? Again, when we look at the self-driving car, depending on the way we train it, there's this, I think, kind of like conundrum that is, how do you teach a self-driving car to react in front of a pigeon that is stopped in the middle of the street, right? You will see it as an obstacle, therefore it will stop, but then the pigeon flies away. Therefore, if you don't stop it, right? But there's no way to actually create these data sets that have infinite scenarios. What is the best way to actually collect data sets and create them in a meaningful manner so that we avoid having biases or ethical problems with generative AI? Starting with Daniela, and then I'd love to hear Ori and Sean as well.
Okay, so based on the data set, so at first, the data is a crucial point. Yes, if you have no quality data and not the right quantity, then you will not have a performing model, of course. And if we think about that, let me say high risk and generative AI models, I think then it's also crucial, next to the data sets you can collect in the real life, to think about the corner cases. Yes, you just mentioned things which we cannot collect on the street, or corner cases which we cannot see, or where we don't like to select or collect that kind of data sets because of privacy issues and concerns. If you think about a traffic situation where you have an accident or something like that, and for that things. And also, if you think about use cases in HR where you like to analyze, for example, CVs and so on, and to evaluate that and generate recommendations. I think it's important to avoid bias, to work with kind of synthetic data to get the right and performing models for the generative AI and the AI models. That will be a recommendation from my side. And of course, do then the test and validation and see how the model is performing and if you get the right results into the right direction.
Definitely so. And each iteration of, let's say, OpenAI's GPT, now with the fourth iteration, is trained over bigger and bigger data sets. Audie, what's your vision about data sets? You were the one that mentioned actually them as being fundamental for reliability.
Yes. So I think, first of all, we should understand that the pre-trained language models create this reflection of the whatever is written on the internet. And unfortunately, that knowledge that is encoded in the internet is biased. Even if we take the most purest data sets, right? I don't know, Wikipedia or other that should be somewhat balanced, you will find certain biases that are introduced just by the way people write about things. So I think it's important to recognize that this is part of nature. But when you when you identified some bias, then there are ways to mitigate it and address the issue. As was mentioned, you can create different synthetic data sets that kind of balance the bias that you identified. I think it will be very hard to map all biases. It's actually, again, unrealistic because we human also have biases ourselves. But there are cases where, again, this could be identified and kind of well scoped and defined, and then we can address these to reduce the bias. So definitely an issue, and I think there are ways to move forward as an industry. We progress and make more complicated and sophisticated models.
Definitely so. I've seen Dimitris has joined back. How's the audio, Dimitris?
No.
We still cannot really hear you, unfortunately. It's a pity. Maybe there's some issue with the audio. Therefore, let me pivot to Sean, because Sean, when you also research new molecules, you definitely have to train the system over a huge data set. And whenever we look at data sets, there's another issue related to that now media companies are actually trying to fight off all the big techs that are developing larger language models, which is, what about copyright? What about IP? What about ownership of content, right? You guys, I'm sure, definitely there's a thin line wherever, you go towards discovering new drug, but, there might be IP protection. How do you deal with that? And how can you strike a balance between properly training a large language model and handling, or at least protecting copyright, or at least giving a compensation to who generated first that content?
Yeah, definitely. I think in healthcare, it's a little bit of a different problem than the music industry. You one of the things that is actually exciting about this is that there's a lot of patient data that's out there. And think of if you were able to opt in to have your data be trained on large language models to help with clinical trial designs, helping with the drug development. That ultimately benefited, potentially you, but also other patients. But then you also have, okay, who owns that? How do who's profiting off of that? But it is very different because the data can be used to actually advance human health. And I think these are some of the things that we have to start asking ourselves. And can you opt in for this? And ultimately, I do think the more data you have around human health that can be used to train models is ultimately going to help that individual patient, but ultimately human health in general. And that's what's going to start actually starting to increase success in the clinic, as well as decreasing the amount of time it takes to get these new therapies. But these are all questions that I think every industry is struggling to figure out at the current moment. But I think again, I think healthcare is very unique in that aspect in terms of data and the rights of that, and actually what does it do, and ultimately it can provide a lot of good for society.
Definitely. So, Sean, now we've understood at this point of the conversation, and our audience as well, for sure, that there are many things that we have to address with respect to generative AI, a lot of challenges, a number of catches that we should know about. And so, Daniela, how can we better bring awareness to these topics and tackle them now? Is it through, or at least, improve these challenges and solve them? Is it through regulation? Is it through maybe communicating better them and, making a joint effort across, big techs or even with regulators to try to minimize their impact? Is it through new tech innovations? You were the one that first addressed the tech gap that there is out there. What's your take on this?
So from my perspective, I'm always focusing on the industry, perhaps the hardware-driven intelligent industry, depends on how you name it, and the question about how to create data value add. So how to get out the potential of that data for that industry. And as I mentioned before, I have that solution approach: think big, start small, and learn fast. So what does that mean for me? And also in the discussions every day I'm going through with the clients is, think big means integrate the potential of that data value add for your industry and for your corporate and your data and AI strategy. What does that mean for generative AI? What is my perspective? What is my why? Why do I have to integrate that kind of technologies to be and to stay competitive in that digital global ecosystem? The second thing is then the recommendation: start small and focus on, if you are not so mature on that mature technologies, don't take the complex use cases at the beginning. Perhaps you start with vision, NLP, or now a large language model based on generative AI, and join your forces, because I see that there are limited competencies and scattered around in the corporate. Join that together to bring that into a value add, and to explain what is the data value add of that use cases, and to make it acceptable and explainable. And my recommendation there is avoid complexity, because that is also something I've learned in the last years that may fail. So start small. And the third thing is learn fast and focus on transparency and knowledge transfer. That means get your hands dirty on the data, work with the data quality, the data quantity to get performing models, and share everything you've learned across a hierarchy and across a business to make that transparent and to learn together and to scale that in your corporate. So in a nutshell, think big, start small, learn fast.
Nice recipe, Daniela.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry
Here
about
we
that.
are,
I don't know what's
Dimitri.
happening. There's a strange day today. So, shall I say
No
everything
worries.
in one go then, Andrea?
No worries. We were eager to get to know your perspective because, again, on the ethical issues,
Well,
you're the expert.
apologies to the audience for this annoying situation. It's not exactly ideal, but what can you do?
It happens. It happens. No worries, Dimitris. And again, when it comes to the ethical issues, Ori's fellow Israeli expert Yuval Noah Harari, actually, he published recently an article that was very much kind of like a little bit pessimistic about our future dependence on generative AI. Therefore, I wanted to get your perspective, Dimitri, as a doctor in philosophy and specialist about AI. Is like, what are the ethical implications of all of this? Bias again, our future possible dependence on generative AI. how do you see these obstacles being around?
Well, look, I wouldn't know where to start, but let's think that you're asking a generative AI program, small or large language model, to learn how to recognize 5 out of millions of protein sequences, of protein characters, yeah? And the AI does a bit of testing, it learns how to recognize those 5, and then you present 5 of those to predict what, which one they can use for a specific, as a specific endpoint in a clinical trial, and they do. So then, have I really? So is the language model that is performing well, or is it the data space I'm exposing it to? So what I'm trying to say is that we have to think about what's really the problem, what's causing the problem. We're talking about data ethics, regulation, and at the end of the day, what we have to realize is that what we're experiencing now with large language models is that some big tech companies are building the actual languages, so they're preparing for proxy, what I call a proxy disruption stage. They will, they're democratizing artificial intelligence, a part of artificial intelligence for the world to use in order to be able to build better natural language processing capabilities, to read through electronic health records, to recognize stuff in there, and hand it over to smaller companies who are going to build the actual, disruption, the actual tools for medicine for other domains. So they're not regulated, they're bottom feeders. The companies that are building the large language models, they just go out there, they access all the information in the internet, which is readily available. They're asking the systems to, perform, and they do. So, this is a big public sandbox that we're experiencing. And so the responsibility for ethics and for bias and everything goes to the people that will actually use the large language models to build tools with them. And this is passing the baton now to the actual startups. And this is the next stage. I think, when we talk about accelerating, about regulation is an accelerator. So, I have proper regulation in place. It means I can accelerate progress. And what I need to regulate to accelerate progress is data. And the data I need to regulate for the smaller players, for the periphery, not the consolidated power. They're building something which is democratic. They're building something that smaller players can use to go faster. So
that's a very important perspective, and it connects very well with the rest of the conversation, because I think they're very important points.
I didn't pay much attention to because I was trying to disconnect and reconnect. So sorry,
But
guys.
we notice we're all on the same page, and that's really great as an addition. Dimitris, we're glad to have you back. And now that we have just a couple of minutes left, actually, I wanted to wrap it up the following way. I wanted each one of you to look ahead in the future. You guys are very expert of your, domain and your industry. And I wanted to hear very briefly from each one of you, let's say 10 years from now, what is that one thing, one area, one belief in your market that will be totally disrupted through the power of generative AI? So how does that future look like? And we'll start with Daniela.
Okay, then I start with automotive. Of course, I think somebody have developed the modular kit for autonomous driving. We will have multi-modal mobility solutions connecting private and public transportation. And I hope I'm still allowed to drive my wonderful car and my motorbike.
We all hope that. Really interesting, Daniela, this multimodal network. Ori?
So I think knowledge worker, we discussed about jobs, but actually my belief is that we're going to, and I'm excited about it, I believe we're going to save a lot of time. Our jobs are going to look very different. We're going to be much more efficient. And so every profession will have its own co-pilot. We'll have a co-pilot for lawyers, for accountants, for any knowledge worker you can imagine. And it will increase productivity significantly. It will be like an kind of an amplifier for the human mind. And so and you can think about it as also a collaborator that helps us think and ideate and transform our ideas into artifacts, digital artifacts that we can use in our kind of a delivery of our work. So I'm excited about the future of knowledge workers.
I like the idea as much as developers have their, GitHub Copilot, everyone will have their own. I like the
Yes.
analogy. Sean?
Yeah, so the pharma industry has a 4% success rate throughout the clinic for getting drugs approved. That's the reason why drugs are so expensive, because we pay for 96% of those that fail. If we can start increasing that success rate from a 4%, 8%, 50%, what we start to enable is us to go towards personalized medicine. You actually make it cost effective to actually see personalized medicine be achieved. You take a patient sample, find the target that's relevant for that disease, and design the therapy that's relevant for that particular patient. That's ultimately what I see happening in the next 15 or 10 to 15 years.
That's really much a wish of any patient with a chronic illness, or any one of us actually that might be subject to that. Thanks, Sean. And Dimitris, the last word with you.
Well, look, Andrea, I don't want to go too far. If I were to make a prediction, I would like it to be 2 years at most, 3 maximum. And, I think what we're going to see is an expansion of the knowledge industry that we have never seen before. I think it's going to be unprecedented, wherever that leads. And the second very important thing is, imagine every time you call, you use a call center that has a really powerful computer that actually you talk to the computer and directs you to the right service. I think this is going to happen with healthcare. So we're going to see incredible connectivity, interconnectivity between different devices, telehealth devices, self-care devices, and this is all going to happen through a computer that speaks to you, a chatbot that does what it does best. It's not about healthcare AI. Yeah, it's about recognizing your voice and saying, okay, what do you need? Are you feeling bad? So existential health is going to come into play. That's my predictions for the next 2 years, 3 maximum.
You're right. I mean, it's hard to predict 10 years out, but 2-3 years it's coming, and it's very exponential, hard to predict. Thanks everyone. I really want to thank Daniela, Ori, Dimitris, Sean for the great participation to this panel. We had a challenge, which was analyzing the catches. It's easy to talk well about generative AI. It's harder at times to identify what are the shortcomings. We talked about tech gap. We talked about bias, ethics, copyright, and IP. We talked about job replacement, but we also talked about some solutions. And therefore, I wanted to thank you for your participation. And Dalit, back to you.
I will actually come back to you again, Andrea, because you are also one of the experts. And as a last comment, I would actually like to ask you to share what are your predictions. I took some minutes for you.
Thanks so much. No, definitely what I foresee, at least, between these 5 to 10 years, I definitely see, well, I do a lot of work with the hardware companies such as NVIDIA, and therefore, let me focus on that. We are seeing much more virtualization of computing power, and therefore, we see Moore's law and, the traditional laws being disrupted, and we see improvements in computing power that is faster and faster. And the consequence of that is, as we've seen now, the new large language model being able to run smoothly with a very easy customer experience. And that is something also that, at least as a comment, is a difference with Web3 technologies, right? Web3 technologies, when we look at NFTs, the blockchain, they're all very transformative, but they're very hard to use. Just try even, linking a wallet to an exchange and so on. While generative AI is very easy to use, and that has been through the exponential improvements in, of course, computing power, but also user experience. And that's my prediction. I see a faster and faster acceleration with quantum computing and new types of computing powers that are disrupting traditional laws and making it faster and faster. And therefore, we just can expect more innovations on that side as well.
So actually, your prediction is definitely not that it's going to take more than a decade.
You're right. I mean, going back, I would agree of asking a prediction of 2-3 years. Dimitri was right. It's let's look at the short term. That makes total sense. It's happening faster than we expect.
Okay. So thanks a lot. It was great, great 30 minutes, and it just passed very fast. And I know that we can almost only scratch the surface of the topics in this short amount of time. Dear audience, feel free to reach out to the speakers in the chat here or on social media. Keep the information flowing, keep connecting, and keep exchanging. Share for success. This is our DNA. And my dear Andrea, Daniela, Ori, Dimitris, and Jean, once again, huge thank you for your insights and commitment. Stay safe and hope to see you very soon again here on stage.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, we're getting to the end. And it was a very intense 2.5 hours, especially with all the obstacles. And what I really like with you all out there, dear audience, and I want to say a huge thank you, the authentication that we have, you reflect in the chat and on WhatsApp. Thanks a lot, because you can imagine we here backstage, as well as our speakers, you struggle with connectivity, you struggle with your audio, things that just happen. So thanks to all of you that you are so understandable, or you understand the situation. So with that, we're reaching the last section of our conference today. Can't believe that. Please welcome with me Sylvain for our grande finale. The section which recaps the most important questions around generative AI, from its current state and application to challenges and possible solution, the role of leadership and development collaboration between domains, and very important, how can we put generative AI to work, responsibility. A very insightful exchange that is just about to unfold with Sylvain joining us today. First of all, let me introduce you, Sylvain. Thanks for being with us. You are the global leader of BCG X, BCG's tech build and design unit, where you lead a global team of, listen to that, 3,000 AI tech build and design talents to partner with large corporations to build a scale, high impact, disruptive tech solution. As the founder and former global leader of BCG Gamma, you have overseen the implementation of AI and analytics solutions for companies across the globe, solidifying your reputation as a trailblazer in the field of AI and digital transformation. And this is also one of the reasons why I just wanted to have you on stage with us. It is my personal great pleasure to interview you now, Sylvain, to unhype the generative AI once again during this conference. Now, Sylvain, can I get your perspective on how has the AI landscape changed in the last month, and where do you see the potentials and risks from your personal and BCG's perspective?
Thank you, Dalit, for the warm introduction. Yes, I think everyone is seeing a big change in the AI landscape with the rise of generative AI. It's a rise which is coming, but there's been underground work for close to 10 years. The whole new generation AI is coming from the Google Labs, from a paper that was written in 2017 about the large transformers. So this new breed of model, which is basically a new version of deep learning. It's a bit like deep learning under steroids. And what's the difference? First, those models enable to predict much better what will happen out of data sets than previous AI models. Second, those models can not only forecast things, but they can create objects. They can create text, they can create pictures, they can create videos that you've all seen. They can also create knowledge graphs. And lastly, for companies, there is no longer the need of having huge piles of labeled data to start using deep learning, which was the big barrier we had in the past. Now, with unlabeled data, companies start to be able to use those models. And it's a big change. And if you take banks, for instance, some banks who want to fine-tune some model and who lack enough transaction data to be able to fine-tune AI model, they use generative AI to create millions of fake transactions, but that look like and that have the same characteristics as a real transaction to fine-tune some of their model. So that's what the technology is bringing. To deploy that technology is different from the past. In the past, data scientists would use open source libraries like scikit-learn, for instance, for machine learning, and they would use some algos and then train them and adapt them to the situation of companies. Now, it's no longer zillions of different open source that can be used. It's just a few privately owned large models that companies can use, but just to fine-tune them because they've been pre-trained by the vendors. And you know, ChatGPT, of course, GPT-3, now GPT-4, and many others. But basically, you use those large models which have been pre-trained and that you just use to fine-tune and calibrate to your own data. And the fields where we see most potential, that lead to your question, is everything related to knowledge and innovation. You want to come up with new proteins for the pharma industry. You want to come up with new visual in the for a marketing campaign, for instance. Here, there can be a massive unlock using generative AI. Everything related to chatbot and natural language processing is very strong too, and we see massive improvement. I think you've all experienced the new interface from ChatGPT. And then, because there's much more accuracy on prediction, this is also a very powerful tool to do more personalized experience for clients. So that's basically what GenAI is doing. Then GenAI is not doing everything. When you need a lot of accuracy, for instance, you want to steer your inventory levels, you don't use GenAI to do that. You use traditional machine learning to do that. So that's in a nutshell what's happening right now in the market, Dalit.
At that now from a leader's perspective, how do you see leaders of different domains are reacting now?
So I would say leaders have been pre-trained with what I would call the AI wave that every company has gone through more or less successfully. It took years, people recruited, people invested, companies started to build teams. Now I would say it's time for the AI shock after the wave. And because all companies have seen the impact of traditional AI, there's a sort of frenzy to start to deploy a generative AI. We see lots of questions from many leaders on how to do it, how fast, where can we make a difference? And if companies at the start of AI, some of them have been a bit blind to what was coming, I feel now most leaders are a bit dazzled, feeling sometimes that Gen AI will solve all the problem. It will not. It will have a serious impact. So there's lots of interest today, maybe too much short-term interest, and leaders do not yet grasp how fundamental the change will be.
Do you think
the previous?
Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, I was about to say on the previous AI, many companies had the challenge to deploy it into their processes. And that challenge will be even bigger because the disruption is even bigger. On the previous AI, there were real questions on the shift of value from corporations to tech vendors because using those solutions, was bringing lots of the differentiation and the competitive edge to the tech vendors. This is even a bigger question with generative AI. And lastly, the competition on data. Those people who own the biggest data sets can make the most of that. Now, because we can use unlabeled data sets to train or to fine-tune those models, this is becoming even more true. So everything that was due to happen with the previous generation of AI will happen much faster, much stronger with generative AI.
Do you see actually companies who haven't started with the previous AI and looking into generative AI and just starting like a layer above?
Yes. So some companies and some sectors are really starting to deploy Gen AI on real solutions and real use cases where they might have done that already with AI. There are several fields. The first one where we see lots of activity is everything related to marketing. Marketing to fine-tune, create zillions of visuals that can be very personalized and sent to individual consumers. And here the ability to generate at no cost, basically, so many visuals and then optimize those who work and who don't work is a massive change in the for marketing functions. In market research, listening to the web and listening to what we have
is also something which is coming very big. You want to know how some of your products or brands are doing. You can just ask in a way. So there's a massive disruption here. There's a massive disruption in software development teams. They've been using Copilot for years. It is accelerating. So GenAI can massively increase the productivity of software developers for testing, for some of the repetitive tasks that they have, documenting the code, for instance. Everything related to innovation. So you want designers, for instance, consultants, lawyers. A lot is happening. We see banks, for instance, using generative AI to check on compliance for letters or mails which are being sent to clients. So, you can ask and you can do this test. You can give a few data on yourself and your personal situation. Ask GPT, and GPT will tell you what's the tax regime that should be applied to you. So everything related to compliance is moving, is also moving very fast, and everything related to chatbots. So all companies who have big service centers are starting to deploy new gen chatbots to deal with their clients.
Okay. I would like to focus for the last minutes about the BCG OpenAI collaboration and about the article that, dear audience, we're going to share the articles with you. Can you please give us some insights into how this collaboration is fostering the business world, Sylvain?
So basically, it's quite clear, the logic. OpenAI they've developed a very, very powerful product. But OpenAI, it's an organization of roughly 400 people. So deploying that product for companies, in companies, requires some dedicated teams who understand the technology, who understand the process of the companies, who understand where the product can make a difference. And that's basically what we are doing as BCG in this collaboration with OpenAI. This is really to, I would say, accelerate the deployment of this pretty impressive, unique, disruptive technology in the corporate world, doing what some would call the service part. So, all the part around fine-tuning the model and embedding into the processes, while OpenAI is truly focusing on developing their product. So that's the logic for the collaboration we're having with OpenAI. And we have a Center for Responsible and Generative AI within BCG X. And our objective is to partner with a number of those large model owners to make sure that we can provide access to those very disruptive technologies to our clients.
Great. So perhaps we can also emphasize a bit of how can we put generative AI into work with responsibility. Sorry.
So responsibility is a clear concern with the use of these technologies because they are extremely powerful. I would say the first one is to really check everything regarding IP and copyright. You've seen the press. There are some legal actions which have been taken against some of those large models from copyright owners. So there is a real notion of who has access to IP, who is learning from data, the knowledge on the data, where is it going, and we'll see different types of models. Some model will run on private cloud, completely separate from, I would say, the rest of the world, and companies will keep everything they do. Some models will benefit from the learning from many, and companies will accept that and accept to work with this model. But that's the first point. The second one is about the risk of hallucination. We know that those models sometimes get it wrong. There are many examples of that which have been seen on the net on GPT-3, and it will be the same with GPT-4. And that's okay. This technology is not meant to be 100% accurate and perfect all the time, which means you need to have your own guardrail regarding hallucination and keep humans in the loop. And lastly, on responsible AI, there is, of course, the use which is being made for those models. The IP owners, so a company like OpenAI would prevent some usage. So if you ask, can you help me build a dirty bomb? The model will not answer your question. So there are guardrails which are being embedded into those models. But then it's for every user to also, for their internal use, think through, is it something which I'm okay or not to do using my AI engine? And everything which has been already said and written on responsible AI is even more relevant and important today.
Perhaps we need to ask ourselves somehow, would I use this kind of AI or this algorithm on my most beloved one. And if we say no, we're probably doing something wrong. Thanks a lot, Sylvain. A last question. What would be, or not what would be, what is your, or one of your most preferred use cases these days?
So using generative AI, there are two which are very close to my heart. One is around personalization. And in B2B context, for instance, we start to see companies using Gen AI to generate personalized letters and offers to their clients. And I'm very active in personalization in general. So I see that really having big impact on my field. The other one is what is happening with software development, with the more and more intensive use of Gen AI to support the developers, to help reduce the number of tedious tasks and be much more productive. Some people are scared with that, and they say, "But it is the end of software development." And I don't think so. I think the world is dying for more codes because we have tons of code we could write that would make the world better and companies more effective. So I see this more as a way to reduce cost and increase massively the number of lines of code that will be written. And I'm very optimistic that it will make the job bigger and more fun.
Great, thanks. Thank you for your invaluable insights, Sylvain. It is always a great pleasure talking to you. And I really hope that we don't have to wait until the next WEF in Davos to meet in person again. Perhaps we can make it sometimes during the year. Thank you for sharing your views and expectations about generative AI. I think also your personal view is very great to hear. The more we learn and share experience, the better we can unleash the potential of these tools in our own area. Hope to see you soon again. Thanks a lot and have a great stay in Chicago. Bye, Sylvain.
Thank you, Dalit.
Merci beaucoup,
Bye.
enchanté.
Merci.
With this, we also come to the end of the conference. Another 3 hours of insights and great use cases. We have heard how generative AI offers immense opportunities while posing significant challenges. One concern is user well-being, particularly for young people who may struggle to distinguish between real life and AI-generated content. Another is AI's current limitation in reasoning and problems with hallucinated data. Both need to be resolved to prevent misinformation and confusion. Another key topic was ensuring that generative AI technology is accessible. It should be available to users with minimal technology expertise, limited internet access, and low-cost devices in order to foster equal opportunities and preventing digital divides. Developing responsible AI also including using inclusive data sets, assembling diverse teams, implementing design justice, and moderating AI models. There is understandable fear about job loss. However, this shift in the job market will not necessarily result in disappearing tasks. Rather, it will change the way we work and create new opportunities for the individuals to enhance their abilities. Ultimately, this transformation in the job market can lead to a more fulfilling and satisfying work experience. We've also come across fascinating application of generative AI, such as Airbus employing AI for enhancing satellite images resolution and detecting anomalies. And Signapse, who use generative AI, is to support deaf people by creating live photorealistic sign language. Overall, we have seen that by embracing responsible development and accessibility of generative AI technology, we will be able to harness its immense opportunities and address its challenges. Dear audience, I can only repeat what I said at the very beginning. As our technologies advance, the role of the human being will stay pivotal. Forging an authentic trust between human and machine is essential for harnessing innovation successfully. It's clear that humans are indispensable when navigating this new train of ever-evolving technology. With these words, in the name of my whole team, SwissCognitive, I say goodbye and looking forward to exchanging with you in social media or seeing you on our stages here. Stay safe and goodbye.